Good evening. This is a concurrent meeting of the School Administrative Unit Number 12, School Board of the Londonderry School District, School Board. Sorry we're a little bit late. We were in discussions with the attorney regarding the quorum issue. We'll get started now and we'll catch up pretty quickly. And Senator Carson, how about the Pledge of Allegiance tonight?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we start, under section 4, questions, comments, announcements, and presentations, would anybody in the crowd gathered tonight have anything you'd like to say this evening? Come on up. As always, please give your name for the record.
Martin Sruga, 17 Wimbledon Drive. I looked at the schedule. I noticed that you guys have the budget presentation on November 22nd. Any chance you can move that back or up to the 15th of November versus 2 days before Thanksgiving? It's kind of a tough weekend to be looking at school budgets.
We have a item scheduled for later in the evening regarding the school calendar. It's under section,
Okay.
it's section 8, deliberation. Nate, if you could make a note of that question, we'll discuss it then. Sure. Okay. Anybody else? Going once, going twice, gone. All right, discussion regarding the quorum. I'd like to give a final resolution on that. Unfortunately, there isn't one. We had a meeting with our attorney earlier this evening. We just finished it, in fact. And the result is there's no result yet. The board has some more discussion and questions and consideration that it would like to engage in. So I expect that we will be engaging in that in the non-public following this meeting this evening. Would anybody like to add anything?
I think that the superintendent was presented with a bill. It would be important to let the public know what that is.
Nate, can you brief us on the bill? This was a request for remuneration of the petitioner's costs in the suit.
It was petitioner's motion for attorney fees, affidavit of Daniel K. Sherwood, and affidavit of Thomas J. Frieda. The bills broke out this way. Attorney Sherwood would be receiving $5,236.13. Attorney Frieda, $7,412.50.
Any further questions?
Not for Nate.
All right. All right, moving on from the quorum. Item second, discussion with legislators. Good evening. Thank you for coming. Representative McKinney, Representative Introne, Senator Carson, Representative Hutchinson, Representative Baldessaro. I'm sorry, I don't. Help me out.
Stella Tremblay.
Representative Tremblay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I thought I saw Dan come in. Oh, Representative Lundgren. I'm trying to remember my wife's doctor's name. Yeah,
Representative Tamburello was at a meeting. He should be here anytime he's running late. Where is he?
yeah, I thought I saw him come in as well. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, good evening. The reason we asked you to come in this evening is because of so many issues in play in your domain, and we'd just like to hear what you think is going on, and I think that various members of the school board are going to want to ask some questions about particular things in issue. Am I right in understanding that the crossover date has passed, so now most of the issues regarding adequacy and the governor's budget proposal are now in the Senate?
That's correct.
Okay, so Senator Carson, maybe you could lead off on where you think things are at this point? if you would come to a microphone, it makes it easier for people at home.
Good evening.
Hey.
It's a pleasure to see all of you again. For the record, I'm Senator Carson, and I have the pleasure to represent Londonderry, Hudson, and Auburn, which is Senate District 14. We have reached crossover, which means that we now have the House bills and they now have our Senate bills. And we do have the budget. The governor has spoken on the budget. The House has spoken, and the Senate is in the process of holding hearings, and we will be formulating a Senate version of the budget, and the process is just starting.
Okay.
So that's where we're at right now. So it's a series of public hearings, taking input from different stakeholders and coming up with a set of numbers. We do have the luxury of getting revenue numbers from March and April, something that the House did not have. So we're going to go through the process, and hopefully we'll be able to reach a consensus by the end of June.
Do you think that that consensus will look more like the House bill or the governor's proposal?
I can't speak to that right now because we're just starting. So we're starting from day one. So I know that the finance chair has taken a look at House Bill 1. A briefing was held yesterday afternoon on part of it, and there's going to be another briefing tomorrow. So there's a series of briefing to the Senate members as to what is in House Bill 1, what is in House Bill 2. So again, we're just right at the very beginning of the process.
Now, for the people's information, House Bill 2 is what's called a follow-on bill that enacts legislative changes made necessary by the budget numbers in House Bill 1.
It's affectionately known as the Christmas tree bill. So,
Okay.
because a lot of things get put into it.
I don't want to dominate the conversation. Any board member have anything at this point? Nate?
I'd be happy to start off with some concerns.
It's always a pleasure to
and-
speak to you, Nate.
Thank you. Sharon, same here. In the House bill going over, I realized that the House had put back money as far as catastrophic aid was concerned and also building aid. Cat aid still being at what we would call 60% level. So that's the revenue side. The big concern for us, and we're going to touch on it a little bit more, was the governor's proposal of going from 35% down to 0% as far as the state picking up their share of retirement costs.
Yes.
Operationally for us, that's a significant issue because, as you know, we have an appropriation level and it's 63 and change. The fact that we would be legally obligated to cover for our district what would amount to $1,382,000 on the appropriation side means, at least at this point in time, we have to hold $1,382,000. So that's going to necessitate, at least at this juncture, a significant number of holds as far as faculty and staff are concerned, and administration, as well as us looking at some programs. So the ability to cover that hole becomes critically important. My other understanding is that in HB2, there is a provision that would allow us to have a special school district meeting, which would then allow the district to increase its appropriation by X amount of dollars, in a sense, kind of matching what would perceive to be an increase on adequacy. But what the Senate could do, or in committees of conference, to put that money back in, I think would be of significant import to us operationally and obviously other districts around the state, because that has a significant impact on what we're looking at. And even at this point, even at this juncture, assuming that things don't get settled till the end of June, even if we had a special school district meeting, by the time everything was settled, it would be probably sometime in August. So that's a significant issue for us, is the state, I'll use this term, walking away from its obligation on the
Right.
retirement side when they informed us that they would be going back to 35%. So that's
Well, what the Senate did is we put forward an omnibus bill in Senate Bill 3 that dealt with the retirement system. The House had a number of different pieces in a number of pieces of legislation. We just put it all in one. We did not downshift at all to the community, so the level that you're at now is the level that you will stay at. So obviously, we did not take the governor's suggestion. So I would suggest that you take a look at Senate Bill 3. It passed the Senate, and it is now in the hands of the House. So we have to wait to see what they're going to do, and vice versa, we now have their bills. So but just to the point that you're asking about the town share, we did not change that. It is in Senate Bill, what it is now is what it stayed at, it's going to stay at.
Okay, that becomes, the other financial issue that I'm looking at, and it may have escaped some people's notice, is the reduction in tuition and transportation, vocational ed, which, if I've got the House numbers here.
Nate, excuse me, is that in the House bill? Is
Yes.
that in the, okay. I think that I think the House members probably can speak to that much
And if
more,
you'll-
better than I can.
If I can interject here, I'm not sure, but I think I saw Representative Baldessaro. You were holding up your pen. I didn't know if that meant you wanted to say something, or
Well,
if you would, Al, the microphone. Forgive me if I lapse into calling you guys by first names. I've known
That's
you
okay.
a long
The
time.
reason, I actually, just to give you an idea, brought the budget just to show you on what we've gone through on different numbers to go through. And I wanted to touch on the House bills on HB 231 and on retirement, also HB 580.
Yeah,
But-
before you do, one thing I want to interject is that Representative Baldessaro did graciously offer to have another couple of reps come down from out of the district that who had specific expertise in the retirement thing. In conversations, he and I decided that probably wasn't appropriate this evening, but he did make the offer, and I appreciate that.
And the reason, because we were concerned, if you were going to get into the retirement, then we would have the actual chairman,
Right.
Representative Hawkins, to get in the bolts, and let you know.
Right, I
exactly.
just don't think we need to
Right.
descend to quite that.
Before Al responds, just so Al knows the issue that I'm looking at, the DOE had proposed $9,819,000 for vocational tuition and transportation. I think this year's level is $6,947,000, and the House's version is $5,900,000, I believe, is the correct number, which is less than what is required. So this is how it impacts us, so just so you're aware, because it also impacts the appropriation side, just so you. Manchester, where we send the bulk of our vocational students, about 105 is anticipated for next year. The voc tuition and transportation offsets the cost to us, our tuition costs, when we send the kids there. So just to give you an example, pull this out. Next year, we're looking at 102 kids going to Manchester and 35 kids going to Alvern, all right? So what we had budgeted based on what we had been informed would be voc tuition and transportation would have been roughly $825 a student for the kids going to Manchester at $86,000, and about $750 a student going to Alvern, $26,250. Fact that both Alvern, and they're still working on their figures, and Manchester, which I guess is about $1 million, that impact is going to mean what we're going to have to pay for tuition to Manchester and to Alvern is going to increase. So if you look at it, roughly, you'd have to figure going to Manchester, about $3,200 a student. Voc tuition and transportation money dropped our share down to $825. Depending upon how that impacts them, we could see a significant increase in the amount of money that we would have to pay for tuition, because obviously that money gets assigned to the number of kids that we're sending there. And if obviously they get less money, our tuition rate's going to go up. So that becomes another appropriation side issue as opposed to a revenue issue. So that when we look at possible loss of almost $1.4 million in retirement, which we have to fill on the appropriation side, and whatever that dollar figure is for vocational tuition and transportation, that would also create a bigger hole, because my assumption is, considering the number of kids that I've got, for instance, we have a total of second-year kids of 46 at MST and 19 kids at Alvern, and a grand total of about 136 kids overall. I don't want those kids not to be able to take advantage of those vocational programs. So the only way we could do that is by taking money from other lines to pay that additional tuition cost. So in a way, that reduction in vocational tuition and transportation also hits us on the appropriation side, because aside from the $22,000 we get for transporting kids back and forth, the rest of the money goes to either Manchester or to Alvern, depending on where the kids are. So that becomes another hunk of change in there that we've got to reconfigure or not do something to allow those kids to continue to go. So that's another appropriation side issue. So now, we're pushing the $1.4 million mark on reductions that we would have to make in other areas of the budget to cover the legal obligation of paying for retirement, as well as covering tuition and transportation costs.
Steve?
I'm sorry, but I've got to ask Nate this question, because what I heard was we're going to be the same next year as we are this year.
In SB 3, correct.
And what you're saying is we're going to be down 1.4. Which is it?
Yeah, if the retirement hole is not filled, that means that because this is the way the retirement works, here's the easiest way I can say. When the state picked up their 35% of the retirement, we went from the state coffers to the retirement system. So we budgeted at 65%, right? If the state does not pick up that 35%, then we're still legally obligated to pay that money. That money amounts to $1,382,000. This is all on the appropriation side. So if you look at our appropriations as a ceiling, which we can't exceed,
Right.
and now all of a sudden there's a $1,382,000 hole in there, I can't add money on top
Right.
to fill that. We have to find money within that $63 million that we have. The only way that you can do that is by cutting $1.3 million worth of services, people, or programs, because you're legally obligated to do that. The same thing with tuition and transportation for vocational ed. We get $22,000, which pays for the ability to move the kids to Alvern and Manchester and back, but it doesn't cover the tuition costs. So if the tuition costs go up, again, that's money that we have to find within the money we've been appropriated by the community. So the only way you cover those costs is by cutting other things. I think what Al and Sharon, what Al is going to refer to is the adequacy money in the bill is supposed to be no more than what we got this year, no less
Whole
than
level.
what we got. There is a provision in the bill, if I remember correctly, that would allow for a special school district meeting.
So that's different money
Yes,
than the 1.4 that you're talking about.
that's correct.
What is
think
coming out of the House
what
in
Steve-
terms, excuse me, what is coming out of the House in terms of retirement funding at this point? I mean, not to get into the nuts and bolts, but the top line number.
I can read here. I actually brought another copy, which I gave it to Representative Hutchins, and we can probably loan that to you, make a copy for everyone to have on the House notes on what we did with certain parts of the budget. But if you take a look at the retirement here, and I'm going to go by requiring municipal employees to increase retirement contribution rates to their own accounts. This here is not going to save the state or the towns and cities from the downshifting that was originally, that was put in from the governor's budget. Okay, and that was a little bit more, made a difference. If you look at the governor's budget for 2012, you're going to see he zeroed out on state retirement contributions, wanted to go right to the locals. But you'll see that $4.6 million was put back in, okay, to help out on the retirement costs. And then there's also another one, increased employee contributions that they're counting in of $42,269,000, which was supposed to offset and not come out of, by the downshift. And I'm reading off of our numbers, through the budget.
All right. I guess the question I would have, Al, would be if that 2% increase, which is to cover what the state was supposed to pay, which is now being paid by the employees.
Right.
Has anyone costed out what the difference would be? And then would there in fact be some supplemental money that would be covered by the state? So let's say the bill passes and 2% is generated and 2% gets us $800,000, just to make a number up. Is the state then going to make us whole on the difference between the 800 and the 1,382,000? And if that's the case, when would we know? Since there's got to be some opportunity for us to make those payments to retirement one way or the other, or the state making those payments to retirement. So, because from an operational point of view, our new fiscal year starts July 1. So if that 2% is going to start July 1, or the 2% is going to start in December or January, when would we, know how much was being collected by? I'm not debating the retirement bill one way, I'm just looking at it operationally. When would we know how much that money covers? And then when would we expect to know or have the state notify us that they're sending the difference to retirement?
Okay, I think I can answer some of that. You should note, the bill, of course, any bill has to be acted on by the end of June. So you would have a very good idea about what's going to happen, because hopefully Senate Bill 3 will be passed for the House and will go to a committee conference and iron it out. So that should be settled. We had to bring in an amendment to Senate Bill 3 because the Department of Revenue Administration said that it could not be implemented until it gave us they needed 6 months in order to implement the changes. The 2% that you're talking about that we're asking the employees to add is not intended to fill a hole that the state is not going to pay. This is on top because the Senate has taken the position that we are not going to downshift the cost. The governor has proposed it, but in Senate Bill 3, we didn't even address it because we saw it as a big downshift to the communities, and so we left it at what it was. So
At
this
At the
is going to be-
35%?
Right, and so this is going to be a 2%.
35 or 25?
35.
It's 35. So this additional 2% that we're asking each group to pay is on top of that.
Okay.
So as far as the Senate version of the bill is concerned, we didn't create any kind of hole. In fact, we're putting more money in.
Okay, thank you.
Peter, did you?
Well, I'm trying to get back to Steve's question, because
This is the house
he had the issue about
I don't know what you guys
1.4
did.
million in his
28%.
Senator Constant said that SB 3 was putting back the 35%. So Steve's question was, so which one is it? My question, though, Sharon, is currently the state's paying 25%. So
Correct.
if you're saying whatever we're paying,
Yeah, whatever you're paying now, we didn't change.
so that's 25%.
That did not change, okay.
That leaves a hole for us, now I'm guessing, about 400,000, as opposed to the zero being 1.4 million. So depending on which,
Right.
Yeah, we didn't change the contribution rate for the towns. We left it exactly at what it is now.
we budgeted a 65-35 split. So if it's a 25, that's a 10% gap. So I'm guessing, I'm gonna guess and say, just for ballpark numbers, about $400,000 gap. Which is what you were getting at.
Right. And Nate, how are you, because you have to issue contracts
Right.
this month, how are you dealing with
Well-
this possible outcome?
What we've done is we've held an additional 18.6, the equivalent of 18.6 contracts, because you've got bills on the Senate side, you've got bills on the House side, and there's no resolution.
Right.
So we're obligated,
And the governor's recommendation,
Zero.
we would need to do that.
that's correct. So what we had to do was hold those additional contracts, because as you know, if in fact we issue a contract, we are then legally obligated, in fact, to pay that person whether we have the money or not. So what we've done, because when we got to the April 1st date, which is when we have to notify teachers, not knowing which way it's going to go, because when you get in committee conference, there may be 25% in on the Senate side, and then at the end, it's not 25, not 25%, it's 15%, or it's 0, whatever the case may be. So we had to provide, for lack of a better term, an escape valve, so that we're not financially obligated for, I think the salaries came to about $1.2 million that in money that we didn't have to pay out. So we've held those contracts on top of the 86 positions that we riffed in addition. And we're in the same boat as most other school districts. I think every superintendent I've spoken to is basically holding additional contracts because we don't know what is going to happen, either with the adequacy or the retirement or voc tuition and transportation. So it's all those things. So we've held on to those at this point. And we won't be releasing them until we have greater confidence as to what we know our numbers are going to be.
Nate, if I just add real quick, if I may, and if you got somebody make a copy of this for each one of you, if you look on the House side that we just passed, you're going to see on, like, for instance, on the teachers, we dropped down on the employer contribution by 2%. If you look at, it's showing here where employer paid 13.95% last on this fiscal year, you're going to be to 11.95% on the teachers. So we dropped down each area 2% on contribution. That's on the House side. That's going over to the Senate. Then, of course, I don't know what the, on the SBs in the 231, what the difference is there.
See, but it just, I'm just talking from an operational perspective, so you guys have an understanding. You've got two different trains
Yeah, you do.
Right.
going down here, and because, we can't predict what's going to happen,
Right.
what we've got to do is financially, we have to protect the school district. So we're holding on a number of contracts, and in essence, holding on a number of programs until it's clear to us and we get hard numbers, and we know what we can release or we can't
Right.
release.
I think it's prudent. I think you plan for the worst and hope for the best at this point in time. So, I mean, I think it's important you understand that there are two different versions out there. As the chairman of Senate ED&A, we've started to hear the House retirement bills. We're not going to act on them right away. We have until May, when we have to report on our fiscal notes. So, like I said, we're just starting to hear them now. So the train is moving. It's going a little slow, but we'll get there.
Okay, our batting order, Steve, John, Ron, Nancy.
Hey, stuff, right, have stuff down.
I'm hoping you guys remember.
We don't have till May, and I just want
I
to make it
understand
clear,
that.
because there's a lot of
Right.
numbers and issues here. Just to make it in simpler terms, Nate, in other states, they call this pink slipping.
Right.
So you were pink slipping, how many employees?
106 at this point.
No, let's not mix it up.
Mhm.
You're including the ones we've already
Yes,
let go.
yes.
For this particular financial issue, you're
Yeah.
pink
It's,
slipping, telling people that you
and,
cannot issue them a contract
right,
until the legislation is formed.
right. So that's an additional 18.6. We're really, what we're looking at is an additional half of administrator, an additional 14.6 teachers, 1 allied health, which is a nursing position, 2 non-affiliated, half the support. So it comes to 18.6.
And not to be emotional, just to
Yeah.
make it so it's words that people can understand. And I can also understand, because I went through it with House Bill 616. It's not over until
Sausage is
till the
done.
end of June, and in that case, the governor didn't sign it, so it wasn't over until the weekend of July. And so I can understand, our schedules are different. It's a
Right.
shame that our citizens have to vote on this in March.
I understand that, but, you know, again, you're dealing with three different bodies, and they've all got to agree at the end of the day. And each one of them has three different ideas, and so we're kind of at the end of the process, because as I said earlier, the governor has spoken, the House has spoken, and the Senate is now doing its work so it can speak. And I think once we get into May, the first week of May, where you're going to see the Senate version of the budget, hopefully that will give you some sort of an idea about, again, where the Senate stands on issues, and know that very well we'll probably go to a committee, a conference, and try to resolve the issue as soon as possible. I think we are sensitive to the fact that we are all on different schedules, and people's careers here are hanging in the balance, and I understand that, and we're going to do the very best that we can.
Thanks, John. So the question that I have is, we're floating between the $1.3 million and what's our low number? Okay, so what is our low number? Can you tell me what that looks like? So,
Well,
right now, I mean, you don't want to change anything, but there's going to be something in between here. Do we understand, we understand that it's either we're going to have to fund the whole thing, or where we are, or some other number? Do we know what that some other number
The Senate
looks like?
has no intention at this point to change what the communities are paying. So whatever it is now, that's what it's stayed at. We didn't address that issue at all in Senate Bill 3.
On retirement, the range would be $1,382,000 to about $400,000, based on Peter's numbers. Because if the Senate goes through and they pick up 25% of the retirement as opposed to the 35%, that's about $400,000.
Last year was 25% as well, though, right?
Right.
Right.
And
So
then
we didn't
what-
change it, we left it the same.
What we were told, if you remember, it was 2 years ago, after everything, went from 35 to 30%, with us not knowing, and then we were told it was going 30 to 25, which was this last fiscal year we're in now, and then we were told we're going back to 35%. So when we built the budget, we built it on the 35%.
Again, in Senate Bill 3, it kept it at what it is now. It very well could go back up to 35% in the Senate budget. So, I mean, like I said, we're just starting that process.
Yeah, and my other comment that I have is I know we're on different schedules here, but there's a high degree of frustration with what happened this year. We completed our cycle, our budget cycle, and then I think the Monday after, the governor stepped out in front of the cameras and said, here's what I'm going to do. If you don't understand how frustrating that is when we have to now go into a contingency plan after we can't touch our budget, I can't stress enough to you that if we had some forewarning about what was about to happen, or, I mean, I understand we can't get on the same cycles together, that'd be just a lot to ask. But to at least have some insight come down to us while we're in our process during that time frame would have been extremely helpful, and I would ask that, you know, if there is some way to get that information to us, please do so. Because now we're locked at this point legally, and it's very frustrating.
I've had the honor of representing this community for over 10 years in Concord, and this is something that I hear consistently from either the school board or the town council. Can you let us know? We're working on our budgets, we need to know. And at this point, I can't give you accurate information. And that's a problem. And I understand it's a problem, and I understand it's frustrating. But it's the way that our government is set up. And I don't have an answer for you other than I've heard this for 10 years. And we try to do the best we can about getting you up-to-date information. And I think Nate does a terrific job on watching what's going on in Concord. If he's got questions, he calls us. I've gotten phone calls from other school board members that are asking about particular bills or asking about the budget. So we do the very best that we can to keep you informed. If there's something else that you would like, you have 9 House representatives, you have a senator. Just pick up the phone and tell us what you want, and we'll be more than happy to work with you.
My question to follow up with that is around, you had no inkling that those type of cuts or those type of proposals by the governor were going to come up?
None.
None of
So
us.
No.
it wasn't even, hey, you know,
He doesn't share that information
put
with
the
anybody.
boots on because it's coming, you know,
No.
nothing. you
He
know?
has meetings with the department heads, and he formulates that all on his own. That is not done, pretty much, that is not done in the public. He does not hold public hearings. He sits down with his department heads, and he has a budget person, and this is what they do. And then he presents it to the House it's a joint session. He presents it to the House and the Senate, and to the public all at the same time. So we are not privileged to know what he's doing until he actually presents it to us.
You know, because if we have to go back to our community and ask for money for appropriations, you know, it boils down to the guys that are asking for the money, not what happened, you know, several months ago at that time. And that's the frustrating part, and I understand.
The only thing that you could possibly do would be to ask the governor to please present the budget earlier. Can you present it earlier for us? So that way the House can get started earlier, and if the House gets started earlier, then the Senate can get started earlier. But again, the governor, he does his own thing, and then,
Would need to be a year earlier.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just not possible, because you need up-to-date revenue estimates. And you can't project out a year, because who knows? You might overestimate, and then all of a sudden you're in a huge deficit. Or you underestimate, and now you've got all this money, but you have no mechanism to spend it. So it can get very complicated, and I understand your frustration. Sometimes it's very frustrating for us too. But we do the best we can with the system that we have set up, and we try to communicate with you as best we can and be accessible to answer whatever questions. And again, I have to commend Nate, because Nate is very good in watching everything. So, and we have the pleasure of having folks come up from Londonderry, either on the town side or the school side, when bills are being presented, and that is because Nate follows legislation. And the same thing happens on the town side.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, you're all invited to add anything you want to add at any time. Let's see, actually, Ron.
I guess, I understand that it's a very difficult time in Concord and all the bills and a lot of confusion and all that. I'm not doing anything there. What I'm gonna say is, if you have an option to push it, if we can push it to the expenditure side, that we don't have to go back to the voters. It's not a case, I'm not afraid to go back to the voters, but here's the situation that I'm concerned about. You get into the situation, you pass your budget by June 30th, you get into July, the governor signs it or doesn't sign it, you may or may not have to override the veto. So you go over to that point. By the time you get the bill in place, even though you give the towns back every single penny, I'm in October already. Programs have been cut, teachers have been fired, and we have affected the education of the children. And that's the issue that concerns me the most, is the education of the children that we're going to affect because we're indecisive. And that's the part. So I know the process. If we can put it on the side where it doesn't go back to the voters, see if you want to spend more money. We're not going to spend any more than we have now, and that we ask the voters to approve. But at least we get a fighting chance to get some of those programs back and put into place. That's the only thing I can ask from you.
I think that's an important message to everyone here, because it really shouldn't be down to playing games during committees of conference, that people should really strive to compromise instead of digging in their heels and saying, well, you're going to pass my version, no, you're going to pass my version, because there is a cost. And I'm glad that you brought up that point, that we're going to lose programs, we are going to lose good teachers. So hopefully, school board members around the state are really letting that message be heard to their representatives, to be serious about this and not play political games with the budget, because we really need to resolve this issue so you can do your jobs. And I'm glad that you said that.
Ron, to add on what you just said, of course, you know, in the House leadership, that our House Speaker and us, we have a good working relationship with the Senate. And they're already sitting down over and over meetings on different things to go forward. So we're hoping, you know, that it will be a smooth transition when the sausage is complete. So, you know, of course, every one of us here are very concerned in making sure we're protecting, our town, our district. So we're not gonna just sit back and watch, and of course, Nate sent us all a letter there before to look at certain things and kinda keeps us focused, because we all have little pieces of the pie up there. So we're not gonna just, turn our back, we're gonna make sure
I know
it's
you're
done.
not going to turn your back on the money. I'm concerned about how you appropriate it back to us, so I can use it enough to support the program and the children in the district, so we don't have to cut additional programs. We try to be very effective as a board to make the necessary cuts that we did this time in these economic times and not affect the children. I'm afraid if it comes to a vote in September or October asking for the money back, I've had 2 months of school. I don't have those programs anymore. They're gone. Okay, and I can't bring them back in November.
Right.
So that's the message I'm trying to give to you. I'm not telling you what to do. I know this is a very hard job. I've been following it. Man, I mean, I read one paper, read the other. It's crazy up there. But please, whatever you can do to keep the monies, that we don't have to take it out of ours to pay something, and then the revenue is my message. And obviously, if we don't fool around and if we can get it done faster, that's all I'm asking for the kids, so we can provide the education that Londonderry wants for their children, Auburn wants for their children, and Hudson wants for their children. Thank you.
Well, we have a Senate leadership meeting tomorrow, and I'll make sure to bring that message forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was essentially going to be my message, was, hard to overlook the fact, given the overall climate in Concord, that we could certainly be facing significant shortages, and I want to follow Ron's point. When we look at loss of staff, increasing class sizes, reducing educational programs, this doesn't make Londonderry attractive when we have to start reducing, things that for years historically have made us look wonderful to people that want to move here. So my message would be, with every time you slice and dice, my message would be that you absolutely consider how that will negatively impact the students in this community and these schools. That's my message.
Okay, thank you.
Two things I'd like to ask. First, Representative Tremblay, I know you live in Auburn. Senator, I know that you represent Auburn and Hudson as well as Londonderry. I know the rest of you represent Auburn as well. I'm wondering what you're hearing from them. Are our counterparts in the other town or towns in your districts reaching out to you with the same message?
Yes,
Anything additional?
same thing, the
Okay.
same thing, just please resolve this issue. Again, people are very concerned about the retirement system because of what the governor proposed. And it's not only the towns, but the members of the retirement system are concerned about some of the changes that have been made also. So I have to say that I'm hearing evenly from everybody across the district, from Hudson to Londonderry and Auburn, and the message is basically the same. People are aware that we have issues, but please resolve them.
Okay.
So,
And in a timely manner.
yes, and in a timely manner, because
Come
they
on up.
need to make plans.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment. I think
If you would come to a microphone, that way people on the wire might be able to hear.
all right. Right here?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. This is my first year. I don't have a lot of experience, but I know what they're trying to do is to have some type of formula that's going to be consistent year after year after year, so we don't have this, scariness that is our budget going to be cut 30%. What you're going to get this year is hopefully what you're going to get the next year, and so on. So there is security, and then you can work your budget around there. If there's extra, great. If the economy picks up, we could always put that in a rainy day fund for yourselves and perhaps have programs. But that's what they're trying to do. The speaker has consistently told us that's what they want to do. Give you an idea year after year. You don't have to worry. This is what you're going to get. And I think that's a pretty good goal to set. So no matter what a government comes in or what people come in, they will try to be consistent. So you don't have to go through this because you put a lot of hours and work into it. And I commend you. And this is what I think we're trying to do.
Thank you, Representative Tremblay. Becky, you got anything you want to interject?
One thing I was just thinking about was how there would be more positions cut in addition to the ones that already were cut. And if the budget is uncertain, would we feel the effects of those cut immediately next year? Would that be like a little bit further on, or when would we really see when
Sure.
that happens?
The short answer, Becky, to your question is yes.
Mhm.
We would feel it next year.
You senior next
We
year?
have on the,
No, senior this year.
we have on the agenda an item 4.3, budget actions for 2011, 2012. I assume we're still going to delve into that in more depth, or have we covered it to the degree
I can
necessary?
touch base, I can touch base on it.
So we can pick up on that in a bit more detail in the future. Representative Tamburello, how you doing?
Thanks, John. Just for my own education, and Nate, you can probably answer this very quickly. In your budgetary process, obviously, there's some sort of date that drives that, and Sharon mentioned that she's been here for 10 years, and this has been a constant problem. What is it that drives your date to be put before the governor's typical date, that this recurs all the time?
We have to follow state statutes on deliberative session and for election, so that drives us.
Okay.
But you could change it, if we wanted, to May. I think there's a couple of dates in the RSA.
You're limited by statute?
Yeah. And the issue that we come into is typical, particularly in the first year of a biennium, when the state is working on their budget. So that becomes an issue. And one of the major thrusts of the adequacy lawsuit was A, sustainability, and B, certainty, so that we knew going in what we were dealing with as far as revenues were concerned. So what we've have begun to see more and more over the last few years, particularly the first year of the biennium, is the budget deliberations at the state coming after everyone has set their budgets. There are very few school districts in the state, set their budget in May or June. They tend to be city form of governments.
I know there were several towns, because I noticed that we did our budget, we voted, and then all of a
Right.
sudden, it was like the next week,
Yes.
the governor puts his out. It's like, we
Right.
took that thing and threw it out the window.
Yeah.
But there were some towns that had it afterwards.
Right, and so everybody's pretty much within pretty much the same framework. You've got that February, March.
You can't do May because you have teacher contracts.
Right. So part of our issue is by state statute, we have to notify people, teachers by April 15th. We have to notify teachers by contract by April 1st. To issue contracts, and as we all know, personnel is the biggest part of our budget. So that poses a significant issue for us. So moving forward on the adequacy stuff, that was one of our thrusts. And I know this year, the adequacy formula was adjusted, and I might as well get my 2 cents in now while I have an opening. One of the main drivers in the adequacy formula is the salary for teachers. In the bill under the current bill, it was the average salary of someone who is a bachelor's step 3 in the bottom quartile of teacher salaries. It's been adjusted, so it's now in the proposed bill, from bachelor's step 3 to bachelor's step 1. So over the next 2 years, as I understand it, it's in a sense kind of a hold harmless. But after that, it would drop off. So as we look out for fiscal year 14, right, it would be fiscal year 14, we would expect a reduction in adequacy money just because of that one change. There are other changes in the legislation that have to do with reimbursement for Title I and reduction in special ed and so on, which will have an impact overall. So the concern regarding stability then becomes piggybacked on, and I'm sure this will be a raw nerve, but I might as well bring it up anyways, would be a proposed constitutional amendment which would in essence give the legislature carte blanche on adjusting whatever amount of money and who gets it. So, to some degree, I think you would heighten the uncertainty of funding to school districts at that point, because it then would give the legislature basically carte blanche to adjust the amount of money and to whom it gives it to, if I read the constitutional amendment correctly, regardless of what the formula is. So the formula could be out the door, in a sense, 2 weeks. So whether you agree with the formula or not, the fact is there is a formula in place that gives you a fairly decent idea as to what you can expect if it's funded. With a constitutional amendment, that no longer is the case.
We're back to spreadsheets.
Right. And so, one of the arguments is you can target aid. Well, you can target aid under the present legislation, too. You just have to guarantee that everybody is getting the amount of money. So you can target aid. And historically, and this is, I'm not casting aspersions on anybody, historically, when the legislature has felt they had total control, what we tended to see at the local levels was a drop in funding to the local school districts. It's just history, that's the way it is. And,
Manchester had strong
right,
representation, and they got
right. And I guess my concern is, we will go back to the battle of the spreadsheet. It will be whoever has the power is going to direct funds there. And the issue then has become, okay, we're going to target aid, but you're going to target it based on what, to whom, and for how much. So, as we continue with the battle, all I'm saying, from my little perch here, I don't think it's going to end the funding wars. I don't think we're going to have stability, just because of the nature of the beast. And the formula, no matter how much, there are a number of flaws in it from my perspective, but at least there is some degree of certainty as to planning and knowing what you have. I'm afraid when we go to a constitutional amendment, if in fact that passes in 2012, that we'll be back to where we were a number of years ago, where it's just throw a dart up, and when we do our budget, it's anybody's guess as to who's going to get it and when.
Nate, we have the power now to do that, to make the changes on adequacy. So that Constitution Amendment doesn't make it. We do adjust the formula, whatever. And I agree with you what happened my first term with the Gatsas plan, on Manchester because of the large amount of votes and everything else. And but we do have that power now, so there's nothing's being taken away. We want local control.
Except out. Yeah.
Right.
Except here's the difference.
comment was, we'll go back to Augenblick.
Here, I think, is the key difference. Under the present formula, though you may adjust the formula up, down, or change the money, okay? It's predicated on the belief that every student should get X amount of dollars, or every school district, based on that formula, should get X amount of dollars. When you go to a constitutional amendment, that guarantee goes away, the way it's written. I think one of the amendments says basically the state has no responsibility for education. One says it has some responsibility. So what happens is we're now back to the spreadsheet wars, and there's no guarantee. So if it says you can target it in a given year and say, well, we have $200 million, and we're going to target it based on this, this, and this. And other school districts, a bunch of school districts, and my guess is a lot of them are going to be middle-tier school districts, the Dovers, the Merrimacks, the Londonderrys, are going to wind up with significantly less in adequacy or in state aid. So in an attempt to eliminate donor towns, I think, in a sense, my guess is, because there's no spreadsheets, you're going to create a different kind of donor town. So in the sense that the local tax rates in many communities are going to go up because the state is going to walk away from its obligation to provide funding, at least at an adequate level, however we define it, to all the students, to all the kids in the state. So all I'm saying is, I just want you to consider that as we look ahead and go forward, and to take some of that into account. My guess is constitutional amendments will probably pass in both houses and probably wind up in the ballot. But as we go forward, I think we have to be conscious of the permutations that may occur once that happens, and looking at what has been past history and how, in fact, that may affect us in the long term. And, the other thing, too, is, in a sense, kind of be honest about how much the state is kicking in, because about a third is statewide education property tax, which is a local tax
Right.
under a different name, but it is a local tax.
Okay, Ron and then Nancy.
John, can I have a follow-up?
Oh, I'm
real
sorry,
quick?
go ahead, Dan.
If you don't have, I'm going to ask you a numbers question. If
Sure.
you don't have them crunched, that's fine. You can get them to me later. You mentioned earlier about the 100, you had 100 and how many FTE that you had originally planned on pink slipping?
We had 86 people.
Okay, so now it's 100 and,
Now we'd be up to over 106. There'd be
Okay,
an additional
100
18.6 people.
106, and enrollment's gone down how much for the next school year projection?
What was it, 100 and some odd?
Okay, so how does that, I know you had this number at the budget, and I
Right.
saw it. The FTE per student to teacher ratio, how does that get affected when you factor in?
Oh, I can tell,
The
well,
reduction in-
sure. Just to give you an example, for instance, at first grade numbers at Matthew, Thornton, and North would rise from 21 to 22 compared to 18 and a half.
This is
And this is
students
with
in
the,
the classroom.
this is with the set that you have now, the 106.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Then third grade numbers at Matthew Thornton and South would increase to almost 25 and 24 compared to 22 at North. In addition, the loss of a kindergarten teacher would increase Moose Hill class sizes from 18.2 to 21.3 based on our enrollment projections. Losing a grade 4 teacher at North would raise the numbers of students in the classrooms, except for the one with a handicap where we have a specific student, from 20.4 to 24.2. Then it would also impact us at the high school level, where we'd see PE sections, an average of 35 students per class, foreign language going from, one of the languages going from 22 to 26. Math, average class sizes will go from 20 to 23 in that department. In business, where we're proposing dropping half a position, our 5 lowest enrollments would mean business class sizes would go up to about 18. Reduction of 40% of the science teacher would require us to absorb 2 additional sections. Industrial arts teacher, we'd lose 40% of the metals teachers. We'd wind up dropping our lowest enrolled in industrial arts, so some of the kids wouldn't get it, and we'd see our numbers in metals and woods max out, because we're only limited, because it's that kind of program,
Okay.
you only can have X number of kids
I
in it.
think the ratio number, do you know that?
For,
The ratio number,
in metals,
no, not medals, the overall number is what he was asking.
Employees to students. Not the classroom population,
Certified to
just the
students.
ratio.
oh, I can get that, no,
That's fine.
Yeah.
I know,
It
yeah,
would be
those are,
interesting.
that's fine. It sounds like roughly 2 or 3 students per teacher, plus some cats and dogs where you got to do PE and the
well, yeah,
other
but
stuff.
it does present a significant impact for us, because you have to remember, it's compounding what we already
Sure.
cut. So in grades 3, 4, and 5, we eliminated the classroom aides.
Okay.
And the purpose behind, in doing that, we did that so we could hold on to class sizes where they were, and so that we could provide an integrated program for all our students. So that, in a sense, becomes a concern for us because of the reductions that we already made.
And last question, I promise, John. I know you guys have studied the potential closure of or idling, as you like to say, of one of the elementary schools. Could you just remind me of what you guys found when you look at that and how that could affect? And at what point, if enrollment continues to go down, at what point does that become a serious consideration that's on the table to achieve efficiency?
And when Steve, I believe, asked that question during the budget process, and I think I said to him, if our enrollment continues to drop, it would be about 5 years out
Okay.
when we'd be able to take a look at something like that. Because one of the things I hope everybody remembers is that we were overloaded. And so we finally got back to a point where we actually had an art room and a music room, and we didn't have some of our special ed services in the hallway. So we were kind of getting back to where we were. And on top of that, it allowed us to develop our in-house special ed programs, which are saving us significant amounts of money because we're able to provide those programs for the kids here. So it's been advantageous in that way. But we are, and I said it during the budget process, saw our numbers go down, and they probably will continue to go down. My guess is once we see the economic upturn, we'll start to see our numbers go up again. Real estate has been fairly slow in town, from what I understand. We do have a potential for a development up in about 125 homes or something like that, I think.
And typically, what is that, like, if something like that would mean to you as far as enrollment in the schools? What's the, you gotta have a hip pocket.
Those kinds of homes, we probably about 2 kids, I would say, about two school-age kids
Per grade?
per house.
Per house, okay.
Right. The other thing, too, that people tend not to realize, but we are a fairly transient community, or have been in the past. So going from 5th to 9th grade, we generally see about a 30% turnover in our students. So I think what we're seeing is, because of the economic downturn, a lot of people who had bought their homes 18, 19, or 16 years ago, when they moved into town and they had their
You're
children.
not getting the turnover.
Right.
Yeah, I understand.
So they're holding on to their houses. So,
You and me both.
you know, so it's a combination of factors.
I think if you're looking at, talking about shrink wrapping a school, you're not going to get the economy of scale. You know, you still have students that you're going to displace, you still have a building.
Yeah, you guys know what the
associated
O&M
with it.
numbers are. I don't, I'm just asking a
Right.
question.
You're not
to
going
see
to
what
get
you out
a
of it.
big ROI just
Sure.
for closing down a school at this particular point, because you still have to support the students that are in that school.
Okay. Thanks.
Couple of things. First of all, I think when you spoke about originally what's holding us, I think the RSA on the teacher contracts
Yes.
being in April is a major restraint. Now you've created uncertainty for the rest of the school year. We have to give the contracts out or not give a contract
If
out.
you could make a recommendation as to moving that date, how we could do that, I'd be happy to
Could you back away from
submit
the
a bill.
microphone a little bit? It's distorting on the
Oh,
feed.
sorry. I'd be happy to submit a bill, and I'm sure the rest of the representatives would too, the rest of the delegation too.
Can I
So
ask a
we'll-
question in line with that? Does the governor have a set date under which he has to?
I don't know, maybe one of the other reps could answer
Well, you
that.
know, that
I mean, does it make
leads-
more sense to have him have a set date that he has to provide his
Yeah,
information?
that could be your recommendation,
Instead
if
of
that's what
us,
you find
yeah.
out, sure.
That leads to a process question I was wondering about. I am not as familiar with the state constitution and process as others may be. But I know on the federal level, any expenditures have to originate in the House of Representatives, not necessarily with the White House. I
Right.
wonder if there is any statute or law in the New Hampshire system that requires the House to wait to hear from the governor. Because, you know, maybe if you guys started in November, the governor might want to hurry up and catch up with you.
Probably if Sharon Packard were here, as he told me once in one of the committees, that's the way we do things around here. So I don't know, Sharon's been around for a while, maybe.
January 1st.
Okay. Well, still, that would be January rather than when did the governor come down with his tablets this year?
Yeah, February.
Nancy?
Yes. Thank you. I wanted to get back to the constitutional amendment item for just a moment, if we could, since we have such a captive audience here of our legislators this evening. I realize, of course, that this has generated a lot of discussion, but since you all are here, I'm wondering if you can share some of your sentiments and your comments and your thought process, how you're feeling about the constitutional amendment. Because, like Nate, I'm concerned that this is just opening the door for the state of New Hampshire to easily wiggle out on its moral obligation to providing funding for public education in our state.
I can answer that real quick for you. I think we'll be wasting our time. It's a moot question. The reason why I'm going to say that is...
Well, you're just one person.
You're not listening. I'm not done yet, please. We've already voted. We voted on the House Constitution Amendment. The Senate already voted on their part, so now it's going to cross. But the bottom line is, you've already know what the language is. You've already know that we voted already. So, and Nate already put his opinion about it. And, I mean, there's no sense in each one of us getting up and we can move on and talk about adequacy and other, just my recommendation here that we came here for.
I would like to offer you all the opportunity, if you'd like
Yeah.
to, because I'm not sure that you're entirely unanimous with it, and ultimately, as you know, the decision will be made by the voters.
The voters.
So I guess I'd like to offer you the opportunity to speak to that if you'd like.
It's no good for Londonderry.
Okay, that was Representative McKinney saying it's no good for Londonderry.
I can speak. I support it for local control.
Okay.
Give it back to the people.
Dan, you're at the microphone.
I think that the current way of business is inherently flawed. I don't think you're going to find a perfect way if CACR 12 passes with the voters, but at least if it does, you'll have the voters' endorsement and not some court decision. The other benefit I see to CACR 12 is that you have before you, well, it would be 10, but Sherm's not here, 10 representatives of the court. You can talk directly to us. You can't talk directly to some justice. You can't call them up on the phone and say, hey, we're getting hosed here. You can get all of us to stand on the speaker's carpet. You can get Sharon to stand on the Senate President's carpet and get all 10 of us to stand in front of the governor.
Except that when that didn't work out so well, we did stand in front of the Senate and say, hey, or not the Senate, I'm sorry, the Supreme Court, and say, hey, we're getting hosed here.
Yeah, but obviously the solution that they came up with was not something that everybody liked. Again, John, you and I could
Sure.
probably go back and forth on this, and
Sure.
you and I talk offline and have.
Sure.
But I don't think you're gonna find a solution that's perfect in either direction. But I think my personal feeling is that CACR 12 presents a solution that is more controllable.
Karen, did you want to?
Well, I voted for the constitutional amendment because it's going to go to the people. And even though this is not a referendum state, I do believe that the people should have a chance to weigh in on it. Having said that, I think we all have to look at the history of educational funding. And I certainly haven't been around for the whole decade, but about 40 years of it. And the school districts never got their money. And the only time the Augenblick formula was ever fully funded, one year in my 20 years that I've been up there, and it was vetoed by this governor. So that was the essence and the beginning of the lawsuit. Now, I have urged everybody that will listen, I have emailed dozens of people. My take on it is that they better have a funding formula in place as Plan B. If the amendment passes, this is how we're going to fund it. So school districts, you guys, the parents, everybody will know what you're doing. I voted for the amendment to go on the ballot, but once that is on the ballot, I'm going to be writing letters to the editor and urging people to vote against it. I have no confidence that my colleagues up there in the majority would vote half the money that you got today, and that's my honest, candid feeling. They have never yet funded education. That's why the lawsuit happened. It was a justified suit. As a board member, I know the pain that's up there, trying to deal with money that's coming in. Is it not coming in? How much are we getting? Who's going to stay? Who's going to leave on teachers? everybody is upset, from the parent with the special needs child, what's going to happen to my child's program, right up through the whole system. And it's a shame. I don't know what to do about it. I think unless they have something in place that we can all chew on and say, yes, this will work, it's enough money, it's doable. If we get it year after year, it'll be constant, we'll accept that, and then the people will have a choice, a real choice to vote. But if they're just open-ended, voting on, give it back to the legislature to decide from year to year how much the school districts are getting, I don't put out much hope for all of us here.
Thank you. Ron, if I can for 1 second, Councilor Farrell has a question. If you guys would, if our delegation would mind answering a question from a counselor?
Mine's a question for Nate and just a statement. I'll be quick. Nate, how many employees do you have in the school district?
Right now,
Ballpark.
about 900.
Okay, and so we're looking at 106 possibly leaving, so over 10% of the employees are in jeopardy.
Correct.
So from the council side, we've got the same problem. We're looking at a $400,000 shortfall, and we're looking at laying off employees as well. Please move quickly.
John, just for the record, if you would give your name.
I'm sorry, John Farrell, School Board Liaison from the council.
Thanks very much. Ron, you had something?
Yeah, and I'm going to go back and
Step right up, Bob. We'll be right with you.
reiterate the fact is, if a constitutional amendment is passed, a couple of things. Go back to the idea of how much money is adequate, whatever the legislature thinks the number is, and we'll go back, way back to John Sununu's days of doing it. If there's $30 million there, $30 million is the number that you raise. So that's how adequately it was determined back then. That's how it's going to be determined in the future. Second thing, and just as legislatures, and you know this, I believe the southern part of the state, when you talk about targeted aid, is going to be affected greatly, where the numbers are going to be down in the zeros. Will be the sections of seeing the zeros, the Salems, the Londonderrys, the Derrys, and all those towns there, Auburn, Hudson, will all be seeing zeros if the legislature has makes the decisions on it. The courts may not be the source, be the right thing, but as soon as, my personal opinion, if I give it to the legislature, they're going to make it on balancing a budget. And balancing a budget, they're going to start cutting that line because it's a big number. And that's an easy number to cut. You know, it's, what is it? I forget the number. It's in there. But cutting a few $1 million, $10 million, 15, doesn't matter. There's a big number there.
Well, let's
So-
not lay that entirely on the legislature. The governor could do that just as easily.
If they have a formula, the legislature passes the bill. Bottom line is that he makes a recommendation, just like Nate makes a recommendation to us. It's our budget that goes to the voters. It's their budget that goes back, and then they'll negotiate. Just history has shown that for 20-some-odd years.
Mr. Introne.
Yes, thank you. I'm Bob Introne. I agree with almost everything that's been said here. I've been in the legislature for over 10 years now myself. The system has been broken the entire time. The funding solution is no solution. We keep trying to come up with ways to try to improve the situation, but it's not there. It's going to have to be a total revamp of not only the Constitution, I think, but as has been suggested here, the timelines on what the governor, on how he does his business, along with how we do ours. I mean, we don't even come on the scene until the first week in January. And, you know, as you say, by that time, it's almost too late for you folks to take any actions. And it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. CACR 12, it passed by a wide margin. I did vote for it for two reasons. One was to put it back with the people to decide maybe once and for all for what they think about this subject. And the second reason was, as you all well know, 2 of your members have been state legislators that are sitting up there right now and have suffered under this system. The decisions have been with
Well, I've
the...
lost a lot of weight, but right now I think I only count as one.
No, Steve Young.
No.
Oh,
Ken
I'm sorry.
Parker.
I'm sorry. I was thinking of the other guy, yeah. Yeah, sorry, Ben.
No problem, Sean.
So was he.
Yeah, who is that? I gotta keep these guys on their toes so that they know what they're doing. But we need to keep the decision process out of the judiciary. You know, the judges have been making all these decisions the last few years, and I personally don't think that's correct. Now, assuming, as I said, the House has passed the CACR, it's going to pass in the Senate, there's going to be a constitutional amendment that will go to the people in November of 2012. At that time, I predict the public is not going to join in at the numbers required for that to pass, but at least the decision will be in their hands. Is there something going on back there? You're all,
No,
you're all
just-
fascinated by...
Just whenever the door opens, we look to see who's coming in, and if they're packing.
It might be Ben.
Yeah. But
Remember Florida.
the fact remains that I think you're all right. Putting it totally in the legislative hands is not going to be, I think, in my mind, a great improvement for the school districts. The judges aren't any good either, but the way this is going now is probably not going to be a great improvement. So we'll all find out in 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Thanks very much. Becky, anything?
Not
Okay. Would any members of the audience gathered here like to address the delegation on matters related specifically to the school district? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, anything else? I have one thing I'd like to add, but go ahead, Steve.
I hope I'm not going to say what he's going to say. I am so pleased that all of you came to engage in conversation. And it really was. I mean, it was two-way. I think you had a chance to listen to us, and we had a chance to listen to all of you. And I think it's impressive. I can't imagine this going on in other states. I just can't.
I really appreciate you guys coming down and just listening to us. I know you've spent all day up in Concord and spent a lot of time there. Appreciate you guys coming down here, talking to us about it, giving us some ideas what's happening there, and us telling you our frustrations here. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate that.
Just before we wrap up, I did want to ask one question on another topic. As you know, we've been discussing the quorum issue, and I'm wondering if there's a legislative solution to that.
Well, I think I can speak to that. I've been talking with some House members and with the local government center, and I think we might have something to bring forward. It's not ready yet. I have identified a bill, a House bill, and when I can get some concrete language, I'll be more than happy to share it with all of you.
Great. Sure.
I can be, as there's no secret, I'm one who brought the suit forward on a
Thank you
freedom
for
issue.
thank you for
We all
pointing
know
that out.
Okay, so I'm not bashful, I'm anything, it was a freedom issue. But I need to take a look at, go back and look at the Supreme Court justice. Take their decisions over the years on voting. Look at the majority and the freedom to vote. It's all around the country. For this state to turn around and step on a voter's right and say, come to a deliberative session, you can't vote until 300 people, 200 people show up to give you permission, is unconstitutional. And I'm going to fight that to the end, and I'm just letting you know, unless I get unelected, which I'll go fishing. But the bottom line is, read the Supreme Court decisions in this state over majority rules, over voting rights and everything else. You'll be surprised what you see. This issue's been fought over many years in the Constitution. So even the legislative intent to put a quorum on, we have a quorum because we support 3,300 people. But when you go to the polls as an individual, you go to vote as an individual, and the deliberative session is part of the process. So until we get rid of deliberative session, I'll be the first one to fight for freedom. That's just,
John, since he said he wasn't shy, if you don't mind.
I'm not shy at all, you know that.
Just one thing, and I appreciate your passion on defending the constitutional issues. It is important to note, though, that Judge Nadu did not rule on any constitutional issues
Right.
on this. That was
Because-
not part of her ruling at all.
Right.
She didn't pay attention to that. And as long as you're not bashful, I do have a question that I've been thinking about here since I asked the superintendent my first question. When we reviewed all of the paperwork, all of the court work, the 4 or 5 inches of documentation, it doesn't indicate in there anywhere that Attorney Frieda was working on the case. Did you know he was working on the case?
No, I know he knew the lawyer, but I think I'd recommend you talk to the lawyer there in Goffstown.
So you,
who
as a
handled this,
primary
yeah.
petitioner, didn't know he was working on the case?
Well, let me put it this way here. I knew that he was involved, and got the lawyer and everything, but as far as what work he did, I don't know, because we have a lawyer. He was working hand in hand probably with the lawyer who he knew. So I'd recommend you contact the lawyer and ask him on that there, to get your answers on that.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for you. Are you going to make that public, the bill, so the public can see?
We did announce it earlier in the
Okay.
day. Would you like
I didn't know if it was
would
going
you
to be
like me to
available
repeat
for
it?
publication in a newspaper. I mean, you don't need to make me a special copy. I'm just curious, as a citizen, not as a senator, as a citizen and a taxpayer. I was surprised.
It'll be at the district office. Right?
Excuse me, John?
Yeah.
Or Nate, I see some questions there.
Right,
no,
you
not-
weren't
not
here. I got it.
It's not a state bill.
We were part of the quorum legal action was a request for the district to pay the petitioner's legal fees. And we received a bill from that, and we're a little surprised to find one of the names on the bill being on the bill.
Okay. I'm just curious of whether or not you're going to have it published someplace where the public can see the charges and take a look at it.
Well, we did announce it this evening. April, do you need the numbers again, or were you able to get them?
Nate?
Okay.
Why don't we do that?
Yeah,
Why don't we do that offline? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The one that we had, Tom did bring the lawyer
Nobody
forward
can hear him.
and everything, and knew who he was and everything.
Nobody can hear
And
him.
then-
Yeah, Al, microphone, please.
Just so you know there, and the lawyer that we did have is somebody that was brought forward for us, okay, that Tom knew, and, so what work he did with him, I'm sure that's why I want to make clarification on that. You understand that he might have worked with him on the laws and on the other stuff there, would have gathered all the information for him, lawyer to lawyer, okay? But as far as us, we worked through, the lawyer there in, was Goffstown, Hooksett. So,
Okay.
but,
All right, thank you. John,
Okay, just
I'm sorry, Nate, go ahead.
I'd like to add my kudos onto Steve's and say thank you very much, all of you, for coming. It's critically important, I think, and it's really one of the pleasures of living in our state, the fact that we can grab a hold of you guys and have these discussions. I really haven't said anything to the school board. I'm just going to throw this out. Embedded in the budget bill is for lack of a better term, the collective bargaining death pill. And I can only speak for myself. I haven't discussed it with the school board. I think it creates an uneven playing field for the employee. In our state, they're not allowed to strike. The Evergreen law was repealed, which was, from my perspective, a good thing. Okay, we have a situation in our state where, because there's an inability to strike, school boards can say no, and have in fact said no. And even if school boards say yes, voters can say no. So I think by, in a sense, having that death pill in there for collective bargaining, from my perspective, and I don't think the people who I've sit across the table from will say I'm an easy mark or a school board. I just think it really dips it in the wrong way, and I think people should have the ability to collectively bargain for salary and for benefits. So it's just my 2 cents.
John, then Nancy?
Yeah,
Oh, you're
can I
good?
add something to what you just
Sure.
said? If you take a look at these, the Supreme Court decisions, there's some in Alton versus the state. There's many cases out there I'm sure you're very familiar with, and I can send you all the cases that I just viewed. The status quo is still in play on these contracts, irregardless on the legislation, that's still there.
Right.
So, but the bottom line, what I'm trying to say is everything that you're hearing is blown out of proportion.
Right.
If you,
I guess, Al, I
do you
completely...
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I completely...
And I know you're familiar with the
Yeah.
cases.
I completely understand it, but I guess this is the way I was looking at it. If I understood the way it was constructed, would be, if there's no successor agreement, the employees become employees at will. Right? So you're entering into a bargaining situation. All right, I'm just looking at it from, I'm looking at this from a larger perspective. Entering a bargaining situation where I could say, no, 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 I don't get an agreement, and they become employees at will. So you've now flipped the complete balance over. So because Evergreen's gone away, right, in essence, a board, now I'm not saying this board would do it or other boards would do it. I've been in New Hampshire for a long time. I know, it's just, you can say, and you can say no, no, no in negotiations, and then people stop exactly where they are. But if you say no, no, no in negotiations now, even if you go to mediation, even if you go to fact-finding, and you go to the voters, then their collective bargaining rights go away. That's the way it's written. And I just, from perspective, I just don't think that's fair. From looking at the profession long-term, with the idea that there are a significant number of people in education, teachers as well, teachers who are probably in my age group. We look young, but we're not all that young. And, what? 35, 40, there you go.
37.
And so there's going to be an influx of people. If we're looking to attract strong educators, well-educated people, you've got to have a situation where they're going to feel that they have an opportunity to have some kind of ability to negotiate salaries and benefits. I'm afraid that this kind of legislation will, in the long term, impact our ability to attract quality people. And just from a purely, and this is just me talking, perspective, it's one thing to say no, but it's another thing if you set it up no, 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 and then because you do that, you become employees at will and really have no rights, I think is not the right way to go.
I'm going to try to be
It's-
quick about it. I thought the same thing when I voted, until just recently I started reading the Supreme Court decisions on status quo, and I learned a lot, and I'm sure you're very familiar with the different courts, the decisions that have been made that protected contracts. I don't think we have a leg to stand on that, Will, there, reading those court cases.
I would
So I'll
hope,
leave it at that.
Al, I would hope
Okay.
that's the case.
All right, thank you very much, John.
Yeah, finally, I'd also like to thank you all for coming. There's a couple of comments that were made, sausage making and so forth, and I understand what that means. But at the end of the day, remember that the sausage that you're making is the education of kids and the futures of kids. And it's important to note that those people don't have voices, and you are those voices for them, as we are. So please understand when you start making decisions about dollars and sausage making and all that you don't forget about who you're ultimately representing and the future of our children. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the legislature, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your involvement. Thank you.
Love it.
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, just so you know.
Microphone, gentlemen.
Yeah. Share microphones on. All right, well, we still have a quorum here. Can I have a motion on the consent agenda, please? I guess not. Okay, we'll hold for a minute.
Just hold for a minute. Just a minute.
If anybody would like to take a quick break, I guess we're in a holding pattern for a moment. Okay. Great.
So what we did was we moved the microphones down. And for those people out there looking at this on television, I'm just doing this so that he can find out if this microphone works versus that microphone. Okay. So that was a bad microphone. Last night, too, town council, it was terrible. All right.
That was a different reason.
Why was it last night?
Okay. This one here didn't work several times because the people weren't paying attention to the mic. And the one over here didn't work because I used to do this for a living. But you were talking.
then I don't feel too guilty.
So Ron moves.
She cares about next year's funding, and she won't even be here.
What did I do, Vicky?
Okay, if we can pick up where we left off, which was at item 5, consent agenda. May I have a motion, please?
So move.
Okay, motion by Ron, second by John. Ron, you had a retirement announcement.
Yes. In this package, there's a retirement announcement that Connie McGinnis is going to be retiring at the end of this year. And from a personal point of view, I've known Connie longer than this. Our sons grew up on the baseball field behind here as Gopher players. Her husband used to be the coordinator of the league. I used to be one of the managers in it. And I've known her, and I've loved her for all these years, for all the hard work she's done in the community and all the hard work she's done for the school district. You talk about an ambassador for the school district. Connie is the epitome of ambassador for the school district. She also keeps us in line as a board. We call up Connie and we ask the questions, and we'll get to Nate through Connie, and she'll do the job. She's kept 3 superintendents in line. She followed a hard act with Peggy Druin when she did that, but she has been a tremendous. She started working in the district in 1988. She was hired as a library media assistant for Sue Ballard. She always was personable. She was always kind. She always cared about the people that called, no matter what you called about. She took care of you and took it as a personal issue, and she made sure it got resolved. In 1993, she moved to the position of assistant to the superintendent, and she worked for Joe Ouellette, she worked for Dick Lates, and she worked for Nate here.
No, she didn't work for anybody.
That's true. That was my last line. That was my last line.
You work for her, Nate?
You better believe it. But overall, she is one quality person. The school district is going to miss her tremendously. I wish her well in retirement. I'm sad to see her go. But Connie, good luck.
All right. We have,
A vote.
I was going to read the minutes, or the meeting schedule first.
Oh.
We have meetings scheduled currently for April.
2, 3, 4. We can skip?
Yeah, don't we, I'm new at this, don't we traditionally skip over the
Go ahead, I'm giving you a heads.
other items?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm giving
yeah,
you a
okay.
Don't confuse the new guy.
They teach you that in school board training.
Like, yeah. Like starting with this meeting wasn't enough. We have meetings currently scheduled for April 19th, May 10th, and May 24th, with a possibility of adding one next week. That will depend something on what's discussed in non-public later tonight, so that will be coming out later. So now if I could have a motion on the consent agenda.
You got it, and you got a second already.
That's right. Can we have a vote? All in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Committee reports. Anybody going to jump on me for going to committee reports? Okay. Becky, you want to start?
The Student Council Film Festival is moved from the evening of March 24th to March 28th after school. All 5 films were presented, and all audience members received a free popcorn and a soda, and all film directors received gifts for presenting films. Members of the Student Council will be attending the District C meeting tomorrow, April 6th. It will take place at Pinkerton from 3:30 to 5:30, and this will be the last district meeting of the year. The Wellness Fair is coming up on April 14th. Members of the Student Council will be there to help around the fair, as well as helping with the blood drive. The fair will be held from 2:30 to 6:30, and the blood drive will be held from 3 to 7. Election meetings for the Student Council, class officers, and the National Honor Society will all be taking place in the upcoming weeks. Last week, both the lacrosse team and softball teams took out-of-state trips for preseason practice and tournaments. Tonight, across the street at the high school, our Meet the Coaches Night was held. The LHS Music Department held its Bandorama concert on May 30th. The concert and symphonic bands played along with the middle school band. All donations collected at the concert are being donated to the Honor Green Band from Japan, a group that the LHS marching band was able to see perform in Pasadena. This Thursday, LHS will face Pinkerton in a dodgeball tournament. The tournament will begin at 6:30 in the LHS gym, cost being $3 for students and $5 for adults. All proceeds will also go towards disaster relief in Japan. The LHS robotics team, the PVC Pirates, will be traveling to Richmond, Virginia on April 7th through 9th to compete for a spot in the national competition in St. Louis. In the previous competition on March 4th, the team placed 21st out of 58. And lastly, the equestrian team will compete in its first show this Saturday at the Tack Shack, which is located in Fremont, New Hampshire.
Thank you very much. Our teacher representatives have been unable to be here this evening. Stella did send in a report. Mary, you have that?
I do. 2 Londonderry Destination Imagination teams won their challenge at the state meet and are going to globals. One team is 4th grade from South, and the other team is composed of sophomores from the high school. Deanna Poulin reports that South School's Drama Club will be presenting the production The Little Mermaid next week. This club involves approximately 70 4th and 5th graders. The club is run by 15 to 20 staff members who have donated their time since September. North School held a school-wide art show on March 30th. Every student in grades 1 through 5 had a piece of art displayed in the hallways for students and parents to view. During this time, parents and students were given a preview of the upcoming Spotlight musical, Aladdin, which will take place in the North School gym on April 20th and 21st. On April 8th, North School will be celebrating the opening day at Fenway with the Red Sox take on the Yankees. Children have been encouraged to wear their favorite sports attire.
As long as it's Red Sox.
Everyone at North School is looking forward to this week, the week of April 11th. They will be celebrating National Library Week with a Western theme. Nancy Real, 3rd grade teacher, will be honored on Monday, April 11th as the 2012 New Hampshire Teacher of the Year nominee. The formal ceremony will take place at the Centennial Hotel in Concord. Matthew Thornton reports that Pauline Pitchett reports that the 5th grade is involved in a project with artist Robert Russell. The glassing process for this project will take place this month and will be done by elementary art teachers at his studio in Epping, New Hampshire. Leo 21 will be there as well as a Londonderry Times reporter. The installation will follow in May, and the unveiling will be at Matthew Thornton's barbecue. 4th grade will be going on a field trip to the Currier Museum of Art on Friday, April 8th. John Brooks' retrospective is on exhibit. Matthew Thornton would also like to give a big thank you to Energy Ridge of Londonderry for making this trip possible. The art annual is going to print this year. Funding was difficult, but they eked by. Sarah Blanche reports that on March 25th, her class met with the high school buddies who are in the Festival for Youth group and the ACT program at the high school. The high school students came to the Matthew Thornton cafeteria and brought each of her students a Dr. Seuss book that they were able to take home. The high school students raised the money to buy the books by running a bake sale at the high school. They do both the baking and the selling of the items. The 2 high school teachers are Kelly Jacquard and Karen McDonald, and this is the 6th year in a row that this wonderful event has happened in March. The high school also reported that senior Cameron Rouleau was accepted into the United States Air Force Academy for September. Karen Young reports that the Londonderry High School FBLA attended the State Leadership Conference on March 31st and April 1st, or will do it on March 31st. No, they already did. Students heard the keynote speaker, Ed Garrity, who gave an inspiring message about leadership. 17 students were in attendance and competed in various competitive events, and the following awards were won. Jules LeBranch in economics came in 1st place. Tom Garvey in economics came in 3rd place. Dan Tierney, personal finance, 3rd place with a $1,000 scholarship to Southern New Hampshire University. Pat Tierney, personal finance, came in 2nd place with a $1,500 scholarship to Southern New Hampshire University. Adam Feinstein, entrepreneurship, 3rd place with a $500 scholarship to Plymouth State University. Kevin Mahar and Luke Durrett, management decision-making, 3rd place with $1,000 scholarships each to Southern New Hampshire University. In addition, the chapter received honor status award for their commitment to participating in FBLA events throughout the year. The LHS National Honor Society is hosting a dodgeball tournament. I think that was just mentioned. Additionally, proceeds from last week's Band of Random concert is being donated to the Japan Green Band Association as well. Over $2,800 was collected at this event and will be added to the dodgeball tournament proceeds. The Lancer Band students feel a real connection to the students of the Japan Band, and it is important for them to do something special for them during these trying times. Interestingly, the Green Band Association is a charity band formed 10 years ago. Since the Green Band Association was established, more than 1,000 students have been selected to participate in charity concerts, and to this date, the association has contributed more than $30,000 to victims of natural disasters, and now we have an opportunity to help them. Barbara has 4 students taking part in the Great Decision Institute at SNHU on Wednesday afternoons from 3:30 to 5. SNHU professor is running the discussion group. The students are Jacques Marquis and Tim Mohonan, do you know?
Monahan?
Maybe. Both ninth graders, Andy Michard, a 10th grader, and Julie Walker, an 11th grader. They are joined by students from Pinkerton Academy and Trinity High School. Each group is presenting a short PowerPoint point for discussion of current topics established by a Foreign Policy Association. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Jay, you had some additional
Nancy,
things.
that's Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, just to
Yes.
briefly pick up on
Hi, John. How you
There,
doing?
see?
Yeah.
more of the high school happenings. Mr. Susi shared a letter. He's been in touch with the Japan Green Band director. And really all year long, our students who represent various organizations have shown their altruism with so many causes. And this is certainly one near and dear to us with the band's affiliation with this group. And I'd like to read the following letter that he sent to Mr. Susi and everyone at Londonderry High School. As a representative of the North Japan Green Band, I would like to send our profound thanks to everyone at the Londonderry High School and others who have helped with the generous donations of money aimed at supporting and giving courage to victims of the March 11, 2011 magnitude 9.0 earthquake and ensuing tsunami here in the Tohoku region, where over 10,000 people were killed and the lives of many thousands more were severely affected. Included among these victims are many of the band and their individual members, from among which the North Japan Green Band were chosen. The Green Band is working hard to help restore conditions to normal as quickly as possible. We have begun holding charity concerts in all areas to help provide comfort to victims, even while many of us have suffered from the effects of these disasters. We are told that among the Green Band members are high school and college students who have lost parents, brothers, and sisters. We believe that warm, sympathetic music can resonate within the hearts of those who are in grief and despair. The efforts of Mr. Susi and everyone at Londonderry High School who performed in concerts and other activities have provided a boost to us all the way across the ocean, both physically and spiritually. We will conquer both this earthquake and the many hardships we will yet confront. Then at some future time, when we have the opportunity, we will bring a new band to America and show our thanks by performing a concert in token of our desire to repay your kindness. Junichi Nato, 2011 North Japan Green Band Director. So, I thought that was pretty touching. Beyond our excellent organizations, we have some outstanding individuals with some great achievements, and I wanted to recognize our top 10 academicians from the class of 2011. We acknowledged the top 10 at baccalaureate and at our graduation ceremony, and the way we determine our top 10 is calculating the weighted cumulative grade point averages after 7 semesters of schooling. And I'm proud to announce that 10th honors is Emily Page, 9th honors Megan Chisholm, 8th honors Caitlin Rimmel, 7th honors Julie Lavalier, 6th honors Sarah Austin, 5th honors Samantha Morrill, 4th honors Philip Larry, 3rd honors Katie Schwartz, salutatorian Megan Schwartz, and the valedictorian is Brianna Mastromarino. Though their grade point averages range from 4.36 to 4.6 that they're graduating with. Just amazing. We also had some teacher award winners. Mary DeWinkler, our English teacher and advisor to the Lancer Spirit, has been recognized by Franklin Pierce University. She's going to be receiving the Fitzwater Medallion for contributions to the public discourse on April 11th. This award is given to one educator from across New England, and she is the deserving recipient. The medallion presentations and award ceremony will also honor a national award winner, and past recipients included the White House press secretary and a CNN correspondent, along with their top senior journalists at Franklin Pierce. She'll also attend a summer workshop in July entitled Presidency in the Press. So we congratulate her, and Diane Malley, our curriculum coordinator, will receive the New Hampshire Advocate of the Year Award for Project Running Start, and she will be honored at the Grapponi Center in Concord on May 9th for her work with Running Start. Just fantastic. Some interesting news from two of our alumni. Kristen Schenkelberg, who graduated a few years ago from Londonderry, is receiving the Barry Goldwater Scholarship. And this is probably the most prestigious award in the United States given to college students in math, science, and engineering. The scholarship is awarded to about 300 college sophomores and juniors nationwide and is based upon merit, with $7,500 per academic year granted to these recipients. Its goal is to provide a continuing source of highly qualified scientists, mathematicians, and engineers by awarding scholarships to college students who intend to pursue careers in these fields. Christian entered RPI as a sophomore from our high school because of the credits he acquired through Project Lead the Way and Running Start classes. So congratulations to him. And another alumni in the news is Robin Respo. She is one of 5 graduate students in journalism selected as a Carnegie Fellow to participate in the Summer Institute at ABC News this year. She's a student at Columbia Graduate School of Journalism. The internship will take place over a 10-week period at ABC News in New York City. Interns will work with ABC News award-winning Brian Ross' investigative unit and obtain field reporting and research experience. They will be given desk space at ABC News, be trained on the ethics and standards of ABC News, and on video and reporting techniques. She is a Colby College grad. And finally, congratulations to our student council, of which Rebecca is a member, and I just informed her tonight that the National Association of Student Councils has recognized Londonderry Student Council again this year as the 2011 National Gold Council of Excellence, which is quite an honor that's bestowed nationwide. So congratulations to them. A lot of good things going on at the high school. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. Liaison reports. Normally, we start at that end, but I don't want to throw Nancy in without some...
We're not even on a committee yet. So.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Steve?
The only thing I have between this meeting and last is reviewing some of the policies and procedures that we'll be seeing soon.
Ron?
I attended the C3 committee meeting, and we spoke about the kindergarten and sight words, and we spoke about the math curriculum. One of the things, before I talk about those two things, I want to reflect a little bit on it. I've been doing curriculum committee meetings for a long time, and over the last, maybe 4 or 5 months, I've seen more engagements. As the school district has gone to the professional learning communities, I've seen the meetings take a different tone. Not where the, it was Mark in the past kind of trying to pull information out from the members. I see now the members being more engaged, and I hear words like, well, we met it as a professional learning community, and we discussed this, and these are the ideas coming out. So as a board member, we said we like the ideas coming from the administration. Now I like this even better when we talk about curriculum, where the ideas are coming from the classroom teachers, and they're collaborating in order to get this. So congratulations to all of the teachers, the principals, and especially you, Andy. I'm seeing more of engagement in the meetings of the teachers and the participants in that meeting. So I think that's a big improvement from where we were several years ago. A couple of things that the board's going to see is we spoke about sight words and how that's being effective over at the kindergarten, the number of words and how we're measuring that. And I think that's something that Andy will bring forward there. But I think the major part of the discussion was on the math curriculum. And I think we spoke about the math curriculum, and there's further discussion to be done. As we do the math curriculum, we've been using unit test as a standardized test. Well, the professional learning community realized that this may not be the best way, and we're going back to the past where they would develop a test and put it together. But in doing this, they're going to make sure the children master the skill at a specific level instead of talking about spiraling it up and picking it up at the next level and the next level. Don't worry about it. It's, okay, we want to teach the skill at 3rd grade. The children should learn it at 3rd grade, and we'll remediate it at 3rd grade. not hoping that they pick it up at fourth grade or fifth grade. So I think that's a major philosophy change, but it's a major philosophy change going back to the way we used to do things several years ago before we got the math book. So Andy will do it much more justice when he brings it before the board, but I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to pay dividends tenfold, and it's the same concept they're using in other fields too, with the getting away from the unit test where you have to go broad and this deep, go short and that deep. So, nice job.
Great. John? Yeah, I attended my first planning board meeting a couple of weeks ago. Topic of discussion was around Woodmont Orchards and that development that's going on out there. That's starting to heat up. We had presentations and discussions around zoning and so forth. I think what's going to be over the next few months of development of the plan is we're going to start seeing what type of impact it's going to have for the school system here. They're talking in the neighborhood of 1,300 homes over the course of the development, which is in about 20 years. So we'll see the first phase come in for about 5 years, and that's going to be significant from a density standpoint. So stay tuned for that. There's a meeting tomorrow that I'll be attending as well. So that's going to be a continuation over I'm going to assume the next few months to discuss and kind of hone out. Also, on a personal note, and that's all I have from the liaison report, but on a personal note, last week, Londonderry sent down 6 wrestlers to the Nationals in Virginia, 1 senior, 1 junior, and 3 freshmen. The last time we had done that was Cody Bird. For those who remembered, we got him down there, so we've sent 6 this past week, and although they did as expected, let's say, because it's a huge group of kids that go down there. We're very proud that we were able to send 6, and hopefully we'll continue to see more of that. They did very well and represented us very well. So I'm very proud of them from a high school standpoint, Jay.
Absolutely. All right, the next item, he said quickly, referring back to his, is no, that will come later. Okay, I guess we go to the superintendent's report next. And Nate, I skipped clean over 4.3, and I mentioned that Becky would have an opportunity to get some more information and ask some questions there. So if you could include that in your report here.
Sure.
Thanks.
Happy to. Let's do the easy stuff first.
Yeah.
Okay. Enrollment, if you look at our March enrollment, pre-K through 12, and including our special ed out-of-district students, 5,003 students is where we are at this point. There you go, pretty easy. Okay, now we'll go to the other stuff.
Okay, unless you want to have Rich first,
That's fine with me.
however you want to do it.
Good evening. We just finished our parent meeting at Londonderry Middle School, where we had about 700 parents and students in the gymnasium reviewing all of the organizational procedures for our trip to Washington, D.C., which will be held next week. We will be leaving on Tuesday morning at approximately 5:30 a.m. From the middle school. Also, we have 2 buses at the high school and 2 buses leaving from Matthew Thornton. So we have 8 buses, 8 coach buses heading to Washington, D.C. We are taking this year 326 of our 8th graders who met the criteria for Washington, D.C. And just to let the board be aware, students had academic expectations and behavioral expectations for the trip to D.C., as they've had in the past. We also, for students that did not go on the trip, the reason they wouldn't be going on the trip was either because of the academic or behavioral expectations. Also, could be parent choice or student choice that they, did not want to attend. Some of them have been to Washington before, and others just made a family decision not to go. I also want to let the board know that we had no one not going on the trip because of financial reasons. We provided scholarships for students. We also had several parents who came through with donations to the tune of the actual cost of the trip. Several parents came to me and gave me an additional check and said, please take care of somebody who can't afford the trip. So it was wonderful to see that, and we have taken care of all kids. Some kids received partial scholarships, and some kids received full scholarships. We will be back on Friday evening, approximately 10 o'clock. All 8 coach buses will be pulling into Londonderry, and hopefully there's not a lot of traffic on Friday, but that's the expectation. We have, okay.
Boy, did you get set up on this?
I did, big time, big time. We have 39 chaperones coming on the trip, including teachers, administrators. We have 4 nurses attending, school resource officer, guidance counselors, and several parents who have volunteered. We are also going to be going to Philadelphia to tour the city, the Independence Hall, Franklin Court, and the Liberty Bell. We're doing that on Friday morning. We'll be packing up, leaving Washington at 8 a.m., heading over to Philadelphia, and then coming back home. We'll be stopping in Hartford, Connecticut for dinner, and at that point, students will call their parents to let them know that they will be coming home within 2 hours from that point. So we'll also be posting all information on our webpage, principal's page, and doing some other kinds of notifications to parents in Londonderry to let us know how we're doing, and let them know how we're doing out in D.C. So we are looking forward to the trip. Once again, it's next Tuesday through Friday for our 8th grade.
How many kids didn't go?
Approximately 80.
80?
Yep. And that's, over the last couple of years, about the same each year. Percentage-wise, we've got about 78% of the kids attending the trip.
Rich, I would suggest that going from the last leg of your trip, Hartford, back home, you could make it an ethnic cuisine type of thing. Hartford has got great Italian cannolis in the Italian section. Then you can stop at Ryan's Deli, where you can get
Yep.
really good pastrami.
Yep.
And then you could stop, as you well know, at Yukon
And get
at
ice cream.
stores and
Yep.
get ice cream.
Yep.
Great ice cream.
Yep,
And then
absolutely.
on your way home.
In other words, that's Nate's order.
That's Nate's order, yeah.
Don't mind.
You're certainly welcome to come along, Mr. Greenberg, but
I'd be glad to meet you on your return.
I'm sure you would.
At 3 a.m.?
Okay. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Oh, hey, do you want to mention anything about your bake sale?
The bake sale, we had our student council that tried to raise funds to send over to the victims in Japan. And it was supposed to be on Friday, April 1st, obviously with our snow day. We were able to get some information out to parents through the web pages, and parents came through, brought the goods in on Monday, and we made close to $400 today. So
Terrific.
did a great job with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Nate, back to you.
Okay. Just to preset everything, and based on conversation that people heard today, when the governor's budget went through, governor's proposed budget went, he went from 35% to 0 on the retirement, which created a $1,382,000 hole on the appropriation side that you really can't make up on revenue. Also on the other side of the budget was on the governor's proposed budget, was $681,000 in reductions for catastrophic aid and building aid. So we were hit on both ends. When that came through, it kind of, which was after our deliberative session, it kind of threw us for a loop. And even with the discussions tonight, we know we've got competing bills and competing dollars. We are obligated to provide contracts to our teaching staff by April 1st. So that also was thrown into the mix. So the timeline now, as you look at it, is we probably will not have a definitive answer on finances till the end of June. There is a possibility, depending on how things work out, and based on what's in HB 2, that if in fact we do get additional adequacy money, that there is also provision that would allow a school board to elect to have a special school district meeting to determine whether or not they want to increase their appropriation because of the increase in the amount of money we'd be getting in adequacy, particularly in light of the fact as to whether or not we get some part or all of the retirement picked up by the state, from which they should. The bottom line is, right now, we're looking at a potential of a $1,382,000 hole on the appropriation side. In addition, because of the reductions in tuition and transportation for vocational ed, we have another unanticipated expense on the appropriation side of the budget. So, not knowing exactly how that's going to work out, my guess is it's going to be at least somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $100,000 at a minimum, if not more, with an outside probability of $300,000, if in fact all the money isn't restored or what have you. That's potential. So that put us in a position where we had to look at and say, what can we hold for the time being to give us some flexibility if in fact the money doesn't come. Because, as I had mentioned earlier in the evening, if in fact we issue a contract to someone, we are then legally obligated to pay them whether the money shows up or not. And aside from personnel reductions, we don't have $1.4 million worth of reductions other than personnel and some other things that we can make. So it put us in a bad spot. Now, the reductions that we're making, I am not endorsing, nor do I hope that they come to fruition. But the fact of the matter is, we're in a tough spot, and we have to hold on to it. So let me give you a brief summary. We're holding, in essence, $1,379,240 in personnel reductions, or holds. Let me use that term. Broken out the following way. The other half of the housemaster's position at the middle school, 5 elementary teachers, the special curriculum position, kindergarten teacher, 40% of an art, music, and PE person, the half-time HR specialist, reducing the receptionist in the district office to half-time, a nursing position, 3.8 teaching positions at the high school, the computer support position, a library media specialist, reducing our audiovisual person to half-time, looking at the equivalent of 3 special ed positions at middle school, high school, 2 at the high school, and the remainders at the middle school. Holding on all administrative salary increases. Also looking at the following, holding on summer school, intramurals at the elementary level, intramurals at the middle school, after-school music at the elementary level, eliminating co-curricular activities at the middle school, eliminating the Induction Institute, eliminating the Action Research, also holding on Class M sports at the middle school, freshman teams at the high school, cutting 1 bus from the bus routes, and delaying computer purchases. That would get us additional $108,000, so the net is $1,488,000, which gives the board some additional play. Now, am I endorsing these reductions? The answer is no. I think we have to hold on to these at this point in time just because of the fiscal uncertainty. Then, depending on how the numbers flow out, then we can make adjustments appropriately. Also, too, we're looking at some ways in which we can approach in, I guess for lack of a better term, non-traditional way. For instance, summer school. As you know, at the elementary level, we run enrichment programs, which are basically self-funded in the summer. That what happens is a teacher will put in a proposal, and I'll pick on Vicki Stickney's because it just sticks in my mind, her teddy bear reading program, or whatever it is. We establish a per pupil cost, and the only thing we do in the school district is house the program. So what we may also do is something very similar to that, or we're thinking about looking at that for the summer remedial programs. At the high school, the plan is to run it just the way it is because it's credit recovery at the high school level. Last year, if I remember correctly, we had about 70 students in summer school. Is that correct, Andy, at the elementary level? So we're going to have to look at some different ways of doing that at this point in time. Hopefully, as we get into May or June, we'll have a better handle on which way we're going and looking at that. So those items that we've got listed, we've got holds on at this point, and we have to wait and see how the financial picture develops. At what point in time do we feel comfortable about releasing it, so that, for instance, if in fact we feel really comfortable at sometime at the end of May or June that we know we're going to get, the state's going to pick up at least 25% of the retirement, we can make adjustments at that point in time. Unfortunately, that's where we are. Our district is no different than basically almost every other school district in the state. When the retirement issue came up, retirement issue meaning the state not fulfilling its obligation to pick up the 35%, everybody is basically holding a number of positions, waiting to see, in fact, how that transpires and how it flows out, and move it that way. That's where we are. If the problem we have is that we have so many possible permutations on this, it's just impossible to predict. So let me just give you one simple one, because it's the easiest thing to explain. State doesn't pick up the 35% in retirement, whatever. So we know we have to pick up $1,382,000. But simultaneously, the adequacy comes in at an additional $1.4 million, $1.5 million, just to make a number. There's a provision in the House bill that would allow a school board to call for a special school district meeting without going to court, with the express purpose, if I remember the way it's written, of increasing your appropriation to some level based on how much additional adequacy money you get, so the board could then use that by increasing its appropriation to cover the cost of the retirement, which would allow us then, in essence, to release all these contracts and put all these programs in place. The issue with that is you're not going to know till the end of June. By the time you go through all the posting, everything, we're at the end of July, beginning of August. Also, the way that bill is written is no amendments can be made to it. It's very simple. Board makes a recommendation to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the additional $1.3 million, et cetera, bam, that's it. No amendments can be made, no petition articles, it's just that.
No deliberative?
Well, you have to have deliberative session.
But
you
the
can't do
voters,
anything?
the voters can't vote on it?
They can't put a petition,
That sounds unconstitutional to me.
they can't petition, and it can't, it's just on that one particular thing, as I understand the law. I'm just telling you.
Okay. Becky, did you have anything you wanted to ask at this point?
No, I just answered my thoughts about, like, just specific what positions may be cut, or what maybe it was.
Yeah. I'll go through some of them with you, Beck. And this, in fact, may change because we do have some flexibility because we have part-time people, all right? But what we're looking at, as far as the high school is concerned, is a PE teacher, so we wind up increasing the number of students in sections there. Foreign language position, half a mathematics position, dropping some of our lowest enrolled sections in business and increasing class sizes. Science too, Jay, right? Am I correct? 40% of a science position. Also, 40% of industrial arts, which would basically be metals, which would mean we'd be dropping lowest enrolled industrial arts, most likely a wood section, and having one of the two remaining certified teachers in the department move from teaching woods to metals. The average class size of metals would then increase to about 16, which is the state maximum because of the kinds of equipment you have. And then in addition, it would impact a couple of the special education positions that we have at the high school at this point. Nancy,
Becky, you okay?
does that answer your question?
Yes?
Thank you. Well, I started reading this last night, and I had to take a Valium because it was so upsetting.
You got
So,
any more?
yeah, well, I'll pass them out afterwards. Anyway, just to put this in perspective, perhaps for some of our members of the press, and for the people that are watching at home, for example, when Nate talks about impacts on personnel at the elementary level, one of the items on the chopping block is the KEY program, Keys to Enriching Youth. And I just want to tell people that in any business, any company, any university, it does not matter, one of the most biggest feared things is public speaking. People simply cannot stand it. They're afraid of it, they get nervous. It's not a skill that people enjoy. And one of the big issues in the KEY program is public speaking. And I simply could not believe these fourth graders at the Images of Greatness just wandering right up to the microphone and belting out their bio riddles. And I really believe that when students are given the opportunity to start engaging in some of these programs at a young age, when they get to be adults and they have to present a thesis, they won't be afraid. Or they have to go to an interview and answer questions in front of a group of people, it won't be a problem. So I'm advocating somehow, some way, that this just simply does not happen. The other thing that I found very upsetting that Nate alluded to is if all of this comes together, our after-school music programs are going to be gone at the elementary level. Let me just read this to you. The action would impact 226 elementary students in eliminating band and orchestra. It would also impact 281 students at the middle school in jazz ensemble, color guard, show choir, and pop starts. The loss of these programs would totally eliminate both the band and orchestra program, which would mean no instrumental classes for grade 5. I'm sorry, I find that shocking. Thus, there would be no winter and spring concerts as well as participation in the Memorial Day Parade. It would also mean that the following year, there would be no 6th grade band. This interruption in services, even for 1 year, would have a serious impact on the 5th grade class right through their graduation, as we will have missed the appropriate window to begin our instrumental program. Londonderry, one of the things we are known for is our fine, outstanding, excellent music program. I urge anybody that is in this room or listening to this meeting to lobby your state senators, your state legislators, because this simply cannot happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody? Go ahead.
I think to continue with that, if you look at the sports programs that are going to be cut, you're looking at Class M teams, freshman teams. If you take a look at those numbers, and I'm going to take the band as well, you have the 226 kids, you have the 281 kids that are from the band, you have 130 and 157 that are on the sports teams that we have in town. That's 794 kids total. That's 16% of the current enrollments that we have today, by the numbers that I have here. That's 16% of our population that we're going to put out on the streets that are not going to have something to do after school. And if I look at the band program, and it's absolutely right, we are going to hurt our band program for years to come. I look at our sports programs, we're going to hurt our sports programs for years to come. These are, even though I know people argue about these are extracurricular activities and they're not core curriculum type activities, some of these programs that we have in place keep these kids in school. They keep them off the streets, and they actually get them to go further in their education than they normally would. I urge, as Nancy does, for us to do everything possible to ensure that these programs stay in place.
Can I just add one other item?
Sure.
The most vulnerable time for our kids is from 2:15 until 6:30, 2:15 in the afternoon, 2:30 until 6:30 at night. It's because most of us that work in the corporate world don't get home until much later. Kids have to be engaged in something that's positive and fulfilling and interesting and thought-provoking. Otherwise, they're in trouble. I don't think that you have to be Sigmund Freud to figure that out. These kids have got to have something to be involved in, whether it's music, sports, drama, some kind of after-school activity. Otherwise, our district is going to be tremendously challenged in other ways. Okay, I think I'm done now, John.
Thanks.
I guess when I look at this here, the part that bothers me the most is the increase in class sizes at the elementary level and the primary grades. We know, as a school district, that when we have smaller class sizes there, we're able to remediate earlier, have the children come up to grade level sooner. We've seen that in the test results. Any test that we've seen that it works. I go back a ways when we had the 30 and 35 students in a classroom. Some of my children went through that. I saw the detriment of it, where children get lost. While we're not talking about going there now, we're affecting the educational process in the classroom. Primary grades, intermediate grades, simple things, reading, writing, and mathematics. 3 basic skills that the children are going to need. And those are the things that we are affecting here also. So that's the issue that we have. That's why we asked the legislature to come here this evening to talk to them about them and the effects. The time frame, I think Nate is being overly generous on the time frame that we can get a vote sometime in the middle of summer. I'm afraid that vote's going to be sometime in October, with them playing the veto game, overriding a veto, and going that way. So this is a very, very serious document. The first budget, we made cuts. Yes, it'll affect the programs, but many of the responsibilities are being picked up by other people that are remaining. Their workload's going to increase. This changes the programs that we have in Londonderry significantly. This is not, as Nate says in this letter, it's not sugarcoating it. And when you look around and says, what else can we cut? It's not there anymore. We've cut it to the bone, and this is going into the programs that we think are important in Londonderry. After-school programs, but more important, what's happening in that classroom when we put a teacher in front of a group of students, and the expectation is that we teach and we learn.
There is a phrase that they used in social studies classes about the seed corn. And basically, it is that the Pilgrims and the pioneers in the Western expansion never ate the seed corn. They didn't eat the product that was supposed to generate next year's crop for them. Just today, the Federal House of Representatives majority party came out with recommendations for some significant changes in entitlement programs, Medicare, Medicaid, things such as that, in an attempt to rein in the federal budget deficit. Why? Because it's not fair to pass our expenses on to our children, our grandchildren. It's not fair to run up debts for them so we can have things that we might want now. But even the rosiest scenario says we're going to keep doing that for a while. And it just astonishes me that any government at any level, from federal to local, can possibly think that the thing to do is to degrade the education that we're giving those kids, the kids who are going to have to make up those debts as well as pay their own way and try to maintain the strength of our country, the strength of our economy, degrade the education that we're equipping them to do it with. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. You have to protect the next generation. You have to protect the future of the people that we're counting on to come after us, to maintain what the country is, to maintain what the country can be, and to continue making progress into the future. It just astonishes me that anybody can think other than that. And just one personal note I want to add. I've said in the past that a lot of what we do here is, as well as protecting and looking out for the interests of the children and the taxpayers, it's to try to be the kind of employer that we'd want the school district to be. And I know that there are a lot of people on razor's edges right now because they're the people whose jobs are impacted by what we've had to put on hold. And I think that you've seen tonight that that's not something that any of us want to do, and we're trying to get through it as quickly as we can and bring some resolution and hopefully retain the people that we're currently unable to extend contracts to. But mostly bring resolution to that as quickly as we can. And I know Nate is working on that, and we're asking our legislators to work on that. And we've been asking the public to lean on, to lobby our legislators to make that happen. We're doing the best we can for the employees, for the parents of kids who might be affected by these programs. And as we've seen Nancy and John and Ron say, that is pretty much everybody in the district. We're doing the best we can to that, and hopefully working together, we can bring it to a successful resolution as rapidly as is humanly possible.
I'd like to add that you know, the term scare tactic runs around a lot during these times. This is not scare tactic, this is real stuff, and it's gonna be real life if we can't get changes and get the funding that we need out of the state level. And there's gonna be real no way around it, because we're gonna be stuck. So it's dead serious for us, and we understand the impacts of what this may mean for a lot of people.
Anybody else on this subject? All right, moving forward. Deliberation. The first item is the proposed school board calendar. No, I'm sorry, school calendar.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I want to thank Carol Mack and Rich Sakilli for working on this. They did the bulk of the work. If you like it, I'll take credit for it. If you don't, it's Rich's and Carol's fault.
Spoken like a superintendent.
There you go. What we're looking at is a school year that would begin on the 29th of August.
Happy anniversary, Karen.
And would end around the 13th of June, plus any additional snow days that we have to add on. Our vacation schedules match up with Manchester and with Alvern.
30th of June's a Saturday.
Did I say, I meant to say 13th.
He said 13.
13.
Oh,
Sorry.
and I wanted Saturday school too.
Okay, well, we can have that.
Actually, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it really is the 29th of June, and I just want to make sure everybody knows that.
Yes.
The last day of school next year will be the 29th of June. If,
We have 10 snow days.
right.
Right.
Right. Yes.
This year, it could be the 30th.
No, we only had 6 this
Yeah,
year.
we won't, but it just, well, people are making their plans, that's
Right.
all.
And the other thing to note is that, unlike this year, our vacation should be off of Massachusetts, so people are not going to run into some of the issues they got with having to pay double for airline flights and so on. Once about every 10 years, we wind up with the same breaks as Massachusetts. But and as per our contract, Carol and Rich worked on the calendar. We sent it over to the Teachers Association. They looked at it. They can't say yea or nay, but they offer suggestions. And then we're bringing this one forward to you, and we recommend that the board approve the calendar for, this school calendar for the 2011-2012 school year.
Nancy? Okay, hang on, Nancy.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yes, thank you very much. We do have a floating day in January, where you see it says primary day, which will be a teacher work day. Since it's primary year and the Secretary of State has not set the day of the primary, once that's set, we'll plug it into the calendar. Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
Nancy?
I recognize that this date doesn't necessarily have to be plugged into the calendar, but as soon as we know what the date of our deliberative session is for next year, I'd like to see that publicized as quickly as possible. We have it?
That'll be a bit
Do we-
later this evening.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ron, second by John. All in favor of adopting the 2011-2012 calendar as presented, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? 5-0.
One more thing, Nate.
Yes, sir.
With the approval of the calendar, I'd like to bring up the issue that we continue to follow the idea of the blizzard bags.
Right, absolutely.
Yes.
And we should answer Martin's question.
For the next item, right?
Okay.
Marty's question about November.
It's in the next
He
calendar.
just said he's going to answer the next one.
The
This
school
is,
board calendars, that will come into effect.
Nate, what is our current last day of school for the current year?
is it 21st? 21st.
21st, okay, thanks. All right, while we're on the, no, it's the next on the agenda too, isn't that convenient? School board calendar.
Okay, what you have in front of you is our proposal for school board meeting calendar for the from June of 2011 through March of 2012. Let me point a couple items out, and I'll get to Martin's question, too. We are proposing to the board, there are two options looking at deliberative session. February 4th is a Saturday. February 10th is the traditional day that we have it. Now, one of the reasons we're proposing, we'll put in the 4th or the 10th for the board to discuss, is that, keep in mind, the town is now going on a different schedule because of the vote that was taken at the last meeting. Also, too, the issue here is whether or not the board wants to go to a Saturday, if you want to encourage, maybe an option for people. Saturday during the day, you might get more people to come to deliberative session or not. It may be easier for people to come, possibly less conflicts in evenings and that kind of stuff. So there's an option there for you, for the board to decide on. Peter?
The other thing to consider is, do you want to go before or after the town?
Now, the 4th would be before the town. 10th would probably be after.
Yes.
Do you know when, Peter, they're planning to do?
I didn't hear you.
Do you know when they're planning to have their deliberative session?
By law, the way the law is set up, the 4th is the earliest you can have the deliberative session, and the 11th is the last day you can have it.
Okay.
So when we have it on a Friday, there's only really one day you can have it, the Friday that we pick.
I guess what I'm,
So if we make it the 4th, and they're gonna use our facility, and it's the same facility, then they're gonna have to go to the 11th if they wanna use the high school caf.
Well, I think people might want to go to the meeting, too. I mean, you can't have them at the same time.
Right.
no, I guess what I'm asking is, I would suggest that we take the deliberative session and not determine it tonight. What I wouldn't want to see us do is put the two of them back to back on two, you know, if they're going to say, I'm going to pick a day the 5th, we don't want to have the 3rd, so we don't want the 3rd and the 4th, or the 9th and the 10th, or however it works out that way. So,
I think that one of the more important questions that we're looking at here is, do we want to have it on a Friday night or a Saturday? And I'd like to hear thoughts on that.
The conversations on the town side that I've watched, it appears they expect us to have it the same day we always have it.
Okay. What do we think would be best for the district?
Can I say to have a quorum?
You may.
I was overruled.
I guess my thinking is that I would like to have it on a Saturday. I think that there are advantages to doing that because it may create lesser conflicts. It may create fewer things that we'd have to enforce a blackout window on. For example, drama presentations, dances, things like that got by us this year. I think a Saturday morning in February has a possibility of being a more easily accommodated time for a greater number of people.
I'm going to take the view, I don't think it matters what the time is, because I'll find the activities, because if I do it on the 10th, then I have all the children have their recreational programs that, I think, I'm a believer, and I've always been a believer, is it depends on the issues that are on the agenda to show what drives the population in that meeting. And you could pick Friday night, we had it on Friday nights, we have it on Saturday. We see town meeting with 230 people on a Saturday, we see 200 and some odd people on a Friday night for our meeting. So I just don't think it really matters per se back and forth. I just think it's what you have on the agenda, what is the issue, and who gets out the people on the meeting.
I tend to agree. I also think that if you had town on Saturday and we took a Saturday, there's 2 Saturdays back to back, that a lot of people aren't willing to give up their weekends for. You know, if you have one on a Sunday, one on a Friday, one on a Saturday, you know, I think you're right. You're going to get it based on issues.
Steve, thoughts? Nancy?
Yeah, well, sorry. I'm kind of with you, John B., or John R., since you call me Mary.
Yeah, whatever.
And I clearly recognize that 2 Saturdays in a row is asking a lot for townspeople. Obviously, I was at the deliberative session this year. Circumstances were a little unusual, perhaps. At 8:45, we're still talking about Article 2, you know, and then we got through the budget, and then people left. So, I mean, yes, certainly that could happen on a Saturday, but I'm thinking maybe if people had a longer window, and maybe, you know, we didn't have to pay babysitters, you know, that kind of thing. If we did have services available, but I don't know. I'm thinking Saturday, but.
Reed, did you have your hand up?
You want a very biased opinion?
Sure.
What?
Could you say it into a
Well,
microphone?
while he comes to the microphone, the other issue we have is if we do it on the last Saturday, then we have a snow issue.
Yep, that's true.
And
Yeah,
it's complex because of the town and the same calendar.
We could have them on the same day and hold them captive for 8 hours.
Absolutely. Reed?
Like the good old days.
I've been assistant moderator.
Oh, do me a favor. State your name, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Reed Page Clark, Stonehenge Road. The complaints I've had over the last 21 years, 20 years, because I skipped the first year, the last 20 years for morning sessions are, I've got to take the kids to the haircut, I've got to soccer matches, I've got that ilk. Nighttime, the parents don't want to drive at night, the grandparents don't want to drive at night either, and those are the two delineating things about a morning meeting and a late evening meeting. And over the last 20 years, except for last deliberative session of yours, where there was 508 at one time, most of them are in the 100 to 200 range. So, you read my letter. I always wondered how 5% for something and a little less than 5% against something makes the voice of the people. There's never more than 12% people vote anyway, which I just don't understand. I've never understood why, if you're voting for John Robinson.
I've never understood that either.
Why there's not more than 12% of the people that vote for or against? That never understood me.
50%, 60%. 20% may have obligations like sickness and other things that could keep them away from the polls. But the other 80%, why they're not at the polls voting for or against any of you, I have no idea. And so I came up to tell you the difference between daylight and nighttime. Nighttime, it's mostly driving conditions, and daytime, it's mostly family obligations such as haircuts and that sort of thing.
So what would your preference be?
I go to both, and I have for the last 20 years, so I am not getting in the middle of that. That's your decision.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on, or discussion on Friday versus Saturday?
I was just going to ask if you were going to make a motion or something.
Not
or
yet.
hold
The
off.
other question we had was whether the budget presentation could be done earlier than the 22nd.
All right. I'll give you my response. I think during the budget process last year, Martin had asked for us to give it to him earlier because he said it was during Thanksgiving and he didn't have time to go through the budget document. I guess I would like the board to stay with the schedule that we have, which is presenting you the budget document on the 22nd, because we have a whole month's worth of budget meetings and discussions and deliberations. Believe it or not, that week means a lot to us in budget preparation time and pulling everything together, because we try to gather the most up-to-date data, pull everything together. Keep in mind, it's basically a $64 million budget document, which, though we start in August, still requires a lot of work for us to pull everything together. So, and I understand what Martin's request was, but if we were just going to discuss it on the 22nd or the next week, and that was going to be it, I certainly can understand it. But if we look at the board receiving the budget document on the 22nd, which, as you know, basically is, here's the budget, have a happy Thanksgiving. I give a brief overview. The 29th, the 1st of December, the 8th of December, the 15th of December, the 22nd of December, the 5th of January. There's a long enough time for people to study the budget, ask questions, and develop it. So I guess I understand what Martin was saying. I guess from our side, the additional 7 days means a lot to us in preparing the budget and getting you something that we can go through and prepare. So that's my 2 cents.
Any discussion on that point? All right, I guess we need a motion, and if you would specify in your motion, please, a date for the deliberative session.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we accept the superintendent's proposed calendar with the Friday, March, it's February 4th? February 4th, that'll give us enough time if there's a snow day.
That's a Saturday.
Saturday, okay, never
You
mind.
want the 10th, Ron?
The 10th, and that gives us the 11th for, if we have a snow day?
Yep.
Yep, because I think,
Can you do the 3rd? Why don't we do the 3rd?
what about,
Oh, it has to
This-
be.
you got-
Okay, I'm sorry.
those Saturdays inclusive, so why don't we, yeah, okay, then I'll make it the 10th.
So the motion is for Friday, February 10th.
That's
Is
correct.
there a second?
Second.
Motion by Ron, second by John. Discussion, please.
Question for Peter. If there were a snow day, it's okay for us to go to the 11th?
Well, no, the snow day, what simply happens is the moderator has to open the meeting, and then we just recess it for a week. So that a snow day has no effect on the calendar. You have to open the meeting, someone makes a motion to recess, and then you pick a
I know we've
date.
done it once.
Yeah, so the snow day has no effect on what day you want us to put the date on.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion calling for a February 10th Friday deliberative session, please say aye.
And the rest of the calendar.
And the rest of the calendar, right. All opposed, please say nay. Nay. Motion passes 4-1.
Mr. Chair, could I ask the board's indulgence? considering the hour, and we've got to go into non-public session, 8.3 does not have to be done this evening. We can put that on the next agenda, and then I can let the administrators go home, and,
Okay.
and we can, because we still have non-public session to go through.
Okay, we'll carry 8.3 forward to the next open agenda.
Right.
Nate, regarding the school board calendar, I'd like recommendations of meeting dates where we could have at least one meeting at each of North and South School.
You mean board meetings?
Yes.
There'd be no TV.
Sure there would. There are drops down at those schools.
Cameras and,
Yeah.
All those issues can be managed. If we can have a meeting when we need to in the district office, we can have a meeting at the schools.
And can I ask what the purpose, why would we want to do it?
Because I would like us to be present in the schools, maybe spend a bit of time focusing on the particular schools' programs going on there, achievements of kids that are going on there, and maybe be a bit more accessible to the parents of the students in the north and south ends of town.
We could try anything. We had done that previously, and the attendance was no different than that we had here. We were at North School, we were at South School. The only way you're going to get the parents there is if you have some sort of preparation from the students that they're going to do some performance or demonstration or something like that. That'll get the parents there.
I would ask the principals to look into that once, as part of the recommendation I'm soliciting. Okay?
I'd rather not.
Anybody?
You know, the district that I came from, we didn't meet at town offices. We met at schools all the time. So, you know, I'm flexible. I can meet at schools, I can meet at town offices. You know, it doesn't really matter to me.
John? Ron?
I don't particularly see the benefit of doing it at a school.
Okay.
I mean, it's, my preference would be to stay here.
Mine is to stay here because I think the camera views are better. We do get people to watch the show. We do get comments on the show here. And I know they can do all the stuff there, but when we get into the district, I know when we get into the district office, we get into trouble because people can't hear us, they can't see us, they don't know what's saying. So,
All right, I guess we don't need the recommendation after all.
How about this?
Burned on that one.
How about this? How about we target North, oh, they all left.
Yeah.
North, Matthew Thornton, and South School, and get a small dance troupe to, well, you know, so to speak, to come here
Like in size,
and
height?
give a presentation, or, I mean, I remember the robots presentations that came in, how much that was enjoyed by people, and we had a full packed house. I mean, certainly we couldn't have, you know, the entire orchestra come in, but we could have some special groups or some type of,
Sure. We
I
can,
agree.
we can bring in
Yeah.
student groups, various types during the course of the
I
year.
would also like to ask if we could do that fairly frequently as well.
Yeah,
I think that there are so many things that are going on in the schools that I'd like to give a forum to celebrate and recognize, and I think these meetings could be used for that.
and attendance at Veterans and Memorial Day, nothing, you know, we all respectful, and I do go to all of them. But a lot of that attendance comes from parents that are coming because their students are there.
All right, well, that
Fill the
didn't
seats.
work.
I think it,
Let's
If we
see.
have Dancing with the Stars, or was Christy Alley, didn't she fall last night or
Oh,
something? I
no,
remember.
she broke the guy.
All right, I guess that brings us to the end of the agenda.
No, you still have the appointment.
Liaison.
Oh, wow. Okay, John, I notice you have the one with yellow on it somewhere toward
I think I had that one. That one's mine.
toward the bottom of the pile. You should have one
Mine's
with-
grayscale.
without the yellow, which has the updates that I'm recommending and requesting for the liaisons going forward for the coming year. The main changes are filling in the positions that George Herman had done, and just a couple of changes here and there to accommodate people's interests and strategy going forward. I think probably the most significant one is I'm asking John and Ron to take the point on the teacher contract negotiations when that comes up. Are we comfortable with the recommendations, Nancy, as you see them?
Well, since this is the first time I've seen them. Okay. Yeah, this looks good. Well, I want to know what I'm doing.
All right,
Just wanna make
are
sure
we
you're not
happy
picking on
with
the new
those
kid.
liaisons? Can I have a motion to accept them, please?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Ron, second by John. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Mr.
All
Chairman,
all opposed? Nay. 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we reconvene non-public session under RSA 91.3, Section 2, A through F.
Second.
Motion by Ron, second by John. This is a roll call vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Hi, Steve Young.
I, John Robinson, I'd like to note for the record that it is 10 minutes past, it is 5 minutes past 10. Good night, all.